Good morning and welcome everyone to this year's virtual MLS Summit, Bring It Home. This is our fourth year and our theme this year is casino and we are all in. I'm Jeff Follis, CEO of Colorado Real Estate Network. I'll be your master of ceremonies for the 2024 virtual MLS Summit. Before we move on, I'd like to introduce the people that make this event happen. Megan McFarlane, Executive Director of New Mexico MLS, Chad Jacobson, CEO of Prime MLS, and Daniel Jones, CEO of the North Carolina Regional MLS. We have joined together the high stakes table to bring you a special virtual MLS Summit with an A-list of speakers, panelists, and vendors. And on a personal side note, I would like to thank Patrick, Margaret, Sarah, and Tabitha for being my back of the house during these technical times. The 2024 Virtual MLS Summit is a one-of-a-kind MLS member summit. Our goal is to bring the MLS industry news and updates to the MLS participants and subscribers at one time and one place. We have brought 4 unique MLSs stretching across the nation to coordinate and present the program we have for you today. With the hand we are holding, this Virtual MLS Summit promises to take home the pot. We have some powerful speakers and panelists today. Guest speakers include Danae Evans, CEO of CMLS, Chris Osborne, partner of Stoll Reeves Law Firm, Andy Walden, and TA of Intercontinental Exchange. And we have 2 panels, and they will discuss important topics like the future of commissions and the role buyers agents play, and the impact of artificial intelligence in real estate and much more. We also have a few short tech talks from our vendor sponsors. Throughout the summit, you may see some polls. Please interact with these polls and give us your feedback. We know technical feedback, yes. And thanks in advance for participating in those polls. Of course, this event would not be possible without the generosity of our virtual summit partners. Sponsorships are the royal flush of our event, and these MLS partners are showing their commitment to our attendees by sponsoring this event. Please take a moment to click on their information and profiles. Now check your cards, wait for the flop, sit back. Let's hear some exciting MLS updates and news. Our first guest speaker is Danae Evans. Danae is the CEO of Council of Multiple Listing Services, an association of over 230 MLSs. She is an ardent champion for MLSs to better serve brokers and agents by considering consumer needs and advocates for strong MLS governance and leadership. She has held top spots at Riz Media, Real Trends, Swain Pool Power 200, Inman Top 101, and Housing Wire Women of Influence. When she is not busy championing the MLS, Danae spends her time as an avid sports parent and coach, fostering dogs and tending to her garden. Please welcome to the stage, Danae Evans.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me today. My name is Danae Evans, as he said, with the Council of Multiple Listing Service. And I just want to take a second to say congratulations to this group for getting it on. As a person who runs these sessions, I totally understand how much work that took and to keep your cool to get it on. So I'm going to say a little bit miraculous. We made it happen. And that is also how I describe the Multiple Listing Service. Miraculous comes to mind if you stop and think about it for a moment. We have over 1 million independent contractors across the US and Canada, tens of thousands of companies, hundreds of different business models, competitors competing to make home ownership happen. That's the power of MLS. So again, thank you so much for having me today. Thanks everyone for your patience and for being here. And I'm really excited to be able to kick off today's event because I am very passionate about MLS. I think one of the core pillars of MLS is collaboration, and today's event is the perfect illustration of that. So New Mexico MLS, Colorado Real Estate Network, CREN, North Carolina Regional MLS, and Prime MLS. It is so very, very cool to see this diverse group come together to educate all of you, our attendees, their members, about everything going going on in the industry. And oh my goodness, there's a lot. You're going to hear from some great people today to help you get up to speed on that. And so thank you for partnering on this event and bringing this really important information to the industry so that you, the attendees, can better serve your consumers and again, help make that homeownership happen. So today I want to talk just a little bit about how the MLS works. Just take a minute to appreciate it. And every day you see these little small miracles that you might take for granted. You go in to brush your teeth, the water turns on. You flip on the light to go in the bathroom and the electricity is there to power your home. And you drive on a road with a whole bunch of different rules and norms that help get us there safely. So we count on this water to run, we count on the lights to turn on, and this system that helps us create order. And these are the rules that make things possible. But like I said, we don't always appreciate them. But if we stop to think about them for a minute and really consider what it takes to deliver clean water or electricity to our home, it's pretty cool. It takes a lot of work to make it happen. And that's the same is true with the multiple listing service, your MLS. Every day you go to work and you know that the MLS has provided you with reliable, up-to-date information and rules that you all have agreed on to best serve your consumers. And these are the pillars of what makes the market work and allow you to provide excellence and get your consumers what they need. The MLS creates the confidence, connections, and community that literally makes the market work. Confidence the data is correct, connection with the other agents to sell and buy properties, and you, this community of professionals who work together to help make homeownership happen. And just stop for a second and think what your day would look like if you didn't have the MLS. Where would you find the information? How would you know what homes were available to show your clients, potential pricing, and how do you know the information is accurate and current? So that is how the rest of the world works. And I was fortunate enough to speak at the International MLS Forum in Paris this last December. And I learned a lot about how their market works, or really maybe doesn't work, because our system here in the US and Canada is the envy of the world. In those other countries, they were just asking questions constantly of how do we make our market work? Because there, in those other countries, they have to go visit and talk to multiple brokerages to find out what is the available inventory. The information may or may not be correct. In fact, a for sale property may not actually even be for sale and is being used as more of a marketing tool versus an actual inventory and accurate data. So the process is very cumbersome for home buyers and sellers, which obviously makes it very difficult for the professionals. And that's because there is not a bedrock of accurate information and a community of professionals like all of you working together to best serve the consumers. So if you've been keeping up with the news, you understand that our industry is definitely at a pretty big inflection point between the lawsuits, interest rate, housing shortage, supply, all the eyes are on real estate right now. And so I hope you've been keeping up on this. And again, some great speakers today to share more information. But I think with all these things going on, there is definitely something that we can be doing to help advance our industry and serve consumers. And that is to share your value proudly and really articulate the good work that you do. And I think most importantly, as an industry, this is our biggest thing that we can do right now. Articulate our value loud and often, your value as agents, brokers, as MLSs. Our value has never been questioned like it is being done at this time. And so there's a lot of noise coming from a lot of voices. So we need to get loud and tell our story. And specifically with the consumers, helping them understand what it is that you and your partnership with the MLS do for them. I think today, a lot of times they talk about the value of professionals is about finding a home. But I think we all know that really the value provided is not only finding the home, but getting it from contract to close. And then you share a few other helpful things along the way of maybe some design choices, some therapy sessions, but so much more. And I believe that the value provided by professionals in the MLS is so important. It is rarely acknowledged, often dismissed. And so we want to just go over a little bit how we could bring that to you at CMLS and also as your MLS is your partner there. CMLS did launch a campaign in 2019 because we did some research with consumers and asked them if they knew what MLS was. And some of them knew that it was Major League Soccer, and some of them did know that it was a multiple listing service, but that was a few less than the MLS. So you and I all know that MLS is the cooler one, multiple listing service. So we did a campaign because we saw there was a problem, but it was really an opportunity for us to share the value of the MLS to consumers. So I want to share, and I think my colleague is going to post this link in there. If not, we will get it to all of you. But we have a campaign for you that you can help share that value. It's called In the Know, and how and why your local MLS benefits the consumer. So it is, I think Megan's putting that in the chat for us. If not, we'll get it to you. But it's focused on how the MLS supports consumers in making one of life's biggest decisions. It's simple, easy language for them to understand. I say it's how I explain to my sister what I do, and keeps all of you, the professional, at the heart of the story. And everything in there is white labeled, so it's free to use, and you can put your own information on it. Those assets are at cmlsintheknow.org. And the website you can all go to and maybe Google in a separate screen is multiplelistingservice.org. Share this campaign, update your listing presentations, your buyer rep presentations. There's slides with the value of the MLS, your role in that. There's videos, social media ads, and flyers that you can include in your buyer and seller kit. So I would encourage you to use those. They can be customized to you. We have MLSs using them. We have brokers and agents using them. The point is we need to use them and get the message out. So we have also been working at CMLS at a national level to make sure that regulators are understanding what is happening and how the MLS works. And we hired legal experts and econometricians to help us tell the story. And we're excited to share. We published a white paper that is also on the CMLS website about all the pro-consumer benefits of the MLS and your participation in making that happen. We were also able to meet with the Department of Justice to advocate for the network effects and the timely, transparent, and accurate data that is in the MLS so that they understand how it works and how it benefits consumers to creating this pro-competitive, pro-consumer market. So ask you to help us do this, share this message. And we want to just continue to grow the knowledge and information of our professionals and our MLSs. And one other little piece I want to promote and talk about is education. And that just speaks to all of you being here today and helping to learn about the industry. How do you better serve consumers, and having an engaged community to evolve our marketplace and champion MLS and the role that homeownership plays. So this is my ask of you today as we jump into these next sessions. And one is just to take a minute and appreciate that small little miracle that is MLS, the role that you play in contributing to that community. Want to thank you for that and ask you to think of your MLS as your partner. Share your feedback, share your expertise and your experiences with your MLS. They are your partner. They want to serve you and be part of your success. Collaboration is critical and appreciated. So again, think of your MLS as a partner. Be willing to give them feedback about what is working, what's not working. Are you utilizing all the tools and resources that your MLS offers? Do you have some ideas about how it can be more efficient, and help us to build this better marketplace so we can continue to serve the consumers? Given the legal landscape, everything is evolving and changing so quickly. So it's important for you to stay up to date. And again, I know your MLSs are working hard to do that. And today's that perfect example. So congratulations to the 5 MLSs who are collaborating to bring you this information. But more importantly, congratulations and thank you to all of you for your patience for their start today and being here. And we've got a lot of opportunities ahead, but I think there's a lot of changes ahead. So I would encourage you all to be open to change, embracing change, and looking forward to a thriving future of the MLS. So Jeff, thanks for having me today, and looking forward to the rest of the programming.
Thanks, Danae. That was informative, and we really appreciate you having some patience with us. And I know your day is probably as busy as could be, so we'll let you get back to it. And thank you so much for helping us understand the value of the MLS.
Thanks.
Okay, we are shuffling the deck and bringing a short tech talk to you from one of our sponsors, Realtor.com. Angie Javier is the national speaker for Realtor.com. Since 2004, Angie has been a trusted name in real estate marketing strategy for realtors in the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. Her extensive expertise shines through as an integral part of the Realtor.com curriculum for professionals, where she covers highly effective sales tactics, traditional and digital marketing best practices. Angie is the co-host of the Results series at Realtor.com, which is a practical webinar series that equips realtors with relevant strategies in marketing, lead conversion, social media, and emerging technology. Please welcome to the stage, Angie Javier.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending where you're dialing in from. Jeff, thank you so much for the warm introduction. I'm going to try to multitask and share my screen at the same time. Let's see. Oh, look at that. I'm on it today. Cool. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Angie Javier. I am on the industry relations team here at Realtor.com. Basically what I do, I'm a content creator. I'm also a national speaker. As Jeff mentioned, I host a webinar series called the Results series for our customers here to really help them go to the next level with the products and solutions that they have at Realtor.com. But today, I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes with you sharing strategies and best practices on how to make your brand memorable to real estate clients. So just to be very clear, I am not a realtor. I have never sold real estate, but I have been in the industry for a little over 20 years, working alongside agents, brokers, and all of our real estate partners and helping them in their marketing strategy, social media. I was a TC for many years. So I've seen a lot of things happen in the industry over time. And so I'm very fortunate to bring all of that experience and all of the things I picked up from different agents over the years into my presentations. So let's dive in and talk all about branding. First things first, we have to come to an understanding that branding is more than a logo, fonts, and colors. It's all of these things and so much more. It's the overall experience that you're providing to your clients. It's that customer service. The textbook definition of branding is a consumer's perception of your product or service. So specifically in real estate, for home buyers and sellers, what is the perception of your service as a realtor and why you are a good fit for them? So if you can get a home buyer or seller to trust you and just trust in your marketing and your brand messaging and just overall you're making people feel good about the decisions that they're making in real estate, it makes it easier for them to remember your brand and to remember you when it's time to make a move. Now, we all know that the search for a home can be quite a process. Home shoppers spend an average of about 10 weeks searching before they take the next step. So 10 weeks is about 3 months. So it's hard to imagine the number of photos and videos consumed in that time frame. In addition to looking for listings, consumers are also looking for agents online. We know, we've been studying this on Realtor.com for many, many years. So how do you make sure that you are searchable during that time frame? An important part of your brand strategy is to audit your online presence on a regular basis. 2 to 3 times per year should suffice, but you got to look yourself up. And it's very simple. You just go on the internet, pretend you're a buyer or seller, type in your name along with keywords like real estate or realtor. What does the first page of the internet say about you? Are your online profiles and sites up to date? When was the last time you clicked on any of these links? So from here, just focus on the pages that you can update right away, such as your profile on realtor.com, your website, your profile on your broker's site, etc. The sites that you can easily log into and just go in and make updates. And you want to do this a few times a year because at any given moment, someone can be looking you up and making the decision if they want to take the next step with you. You want to feel in control on the first page of the search results, right? Otherwise, your brand might feel like a mystery documentary on Netflix. It's time to get back in control. Make the time to put your strategy in order. So your free profile on realtor.com is an easy and free way to elevate your professional brand. Realtor.com is the only national real estate site that gives consumers a way to search for and connect with realtors across the country. We've delivered millions of free leads from profiles in our Find a Realtor search last year. So a lot of agents will ask me, how can I get started with realtor.com? Set up your profile, make sure it's completed, and be on the way to being discovered and found on the #1 most trusted portal in real estate. Having a completed profile boosts your search engine optimization so that SEO, you'll hear SEO a lot in a lot of marketing presentations or brand presentations. You got to boost your SEO, and the easiest way to do that is to complete your profiles. So the bottom line with SEO is making it easier to find you on the internet, and you have to have your completed profiles. And you don't look like this, right? We don't want to make it hard for buyers and sellers to find you. So let me show you how easy it is to update your profile. You're just simply going to go to realtor.com and you're going to log into your professional dashboard. So in the top right corner, you're going to click log in just like that. Then you're going to log in as a real estate agent. So it's at the bottom of this little login box. If this is the first time you're logging into the pro dashboard on realtor.com, you're going to create an account. So if you've never done this before, create an account and go through the motions to set it up. Otherwise, if you're coming back, you're going to hit login and it's going to take you to the login for the dashboard. So you're going to enter your email address and password. There's even a video here if you need additional information. You can do a forget password, and ultimately you can call customer support and they can reset it for you. Now, the pro dashboard on realtor.com is where you manage your profile. You can also enhance your listings. And if you subscribe to any of our services like Listing Toolkit, Local Expert, Connections Plus Lead Program, and so on, this is where you'll go in to manage your paid subscriptions. So once you're logged in, on the left-hand side, you'll see the menu. Right under Manage Profile is where you'll update things like your profile, the banner image, your photo, contact information, etc. So it's super simple. Once you click on there, it'll take you through the process. I want to spend just a minute here talking about two key elements of your profile, and that is recommendations and ratings and reviews. So I'm going to start with ratings and reviews. Your clients can leave you a real rating and review, and you have the ability to respond directly to every rating and review so others can see your responsiveness. So similar to how you can respond to a Yelp review or a Google review, you can do that on realtor.com as well. And so it's really important to know, because we're always feeding into consumer behavior and what consumers expect in that visibility of having that transparency with other agents. So you have that opportunity to do that. For those of you that are using Real Satisfied or Rate My Agent, you can link your accounts into your realtor.com profile so they can come in directly from those sites. Now for recommendations, this is a hidden gem in your realtor.com profile. You can request personal recommendations from colleagues, friends and family, maybe leadership and team leaders at your company, and they can leave a testimony on your work ethic. So this is a really great tip for newer agents if you're trying to build an online brand. And in the recommendation section, so this is the real hidden gem. In the recommendations, you can also copy and paste reviews you have on other sites. Let's say you have an amazing review, but it's sitting on your broker's website and you just want to put it somewhere else. you can copy and paste that into your realtor.com under recommendations. So now it can be seen by even more people who are searching for an agent like you. Okay, so that's all about your profile. Very important. And again, it's that one thing that you can do that's absolutely free to set it up. You can even add video and so on. So adding a video to your profile and your website helps with your online presence because search engines love video content. And so for those of you who have already claimed your profile, and maybe it's been a minute since you've made any updates, add a video to it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a profile video. I mean, if your brokerage has any commercials or any community videos sitting on YouTube, you can bring those over onto your profile. Let's take a look at some quick examples to get motivated. Our first video here is by Rita Tainaka. I'm only going to show a few seconds, but I just want us to see an example of a really great profile video.
My kids were 2 and 4, and I was a teacher, and I was dropping them off at daycare every day. And I thought, I need to do something where I can be home with them and have more time with them. My mom had been a realtor, and I saw that she was able to be home with us. And so I became a realtor. That's when it all started. I'm Rita Tainaka, and I work at Costa Canyon Real Estate.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there just because it goes on and on. But a few key highlights. No doubt this is a professionally produced video that has jump cuts, B-roll, voiceover, all of that fancy stuff, right? I know that can seem daunting, but you can actually accomplish a lot of this on your own these days with tools like iMovie or Camtasia. Okay, so iMovie is for Apple users. Camtasia is if you have a PC computer. What I really want you to take away from this example is how she started telling her story. My kids were 2 and 4. I was a teacher. I wanted to do something where I can be home with them. I mean, how many of you were immediately drawn to hear her story? So Rita does a really great job at offering her story. She talks about what she's good at in a very sincere way and why her clients love her. And so this is the perfect construct of a profile video. Now, the next example I want to show you here is from our friend Gonzalo. He is a
Hi, I'm Gonzalo Mejia, team leader of the Dream Home team here in Norris, Florida. We serve Duval, St. Johns, and Clay County. I am also a real estate instructor and national and international speaker. Since 2004, I have enjoyed working with buyers and sellers, helping them achieve their goals. One of my most important objectives is for our customers to enjoy the process.
Okay, I'll pause it right there. But you see here, no edits, right? He's primarily doing a one shot. It's filmed on his laptop. He has a lavalier mic. So one little tip here, if you're doing a lot of video content for your social media, get that lavalier mic because it's ultimately going to help you with the sound and make your video a little bit more easy to digest. All right. And I know that some of you in the audience are thinking, I don't have time to put together a script or I can't afford to hire a copywriter. Well, thank goodness for ChatGPT for giving us the time of productivity, the gift of time and productivity. So use ChatGPT to come up with the talk track. So here's your prompt. Write a talk track for a 1-minute introduction video on my real estate website. You know, there's really no excuse to make this happen. And this is probably the #1 thing that you can do to increase your brand visibility across the board. Here are some quick topics and ideas to ensure that you maintain consistency in your brand visibility and messaging, right? Educational and entertaining content is more memorable. And then to hold yourself accountable, use a content calendar so you don't lose momentum with your brand strategy. I know we're at time here. So if you need any templates, just shoot me an email and I'd be happy to send them over to you. But one last thing I'm going to leave you all with. It's not fancy. This template is not even perfect. The goal is just to get it done, right? We went over quite a bit of strategies and tactics. I just want you to think of the one thing that's going to help you to get started and how you're going to plan to get it implemented. Thank you all so much for having me. Sorry to go a little bit over, but good stuff.
Thank you, Angie, so much. Summit participants, you have just been provided some great insight to raise your bet with Angie's tip. Next up is Andy Walden and Lucy. Andy is the VP of Enterprise Research Strategy and Analytics. Lucy is the Executive VP of MLS Solutions. Both of them work for Intercontinental Exchange. Andy has over 15 years of industry experience, including default servicing operations, market surveillance, and applied mortgage analytics. A 2021 Housing Wire Rising Star, Andy is consistently recognized by his peers and increasingly by the nation at large as one of the industry's most authoritative voices on housing market trends. Lucy is Executive VP, and in this role, Lucy leads the division's development, delivery, and support of Paragon MLS and its family of related real estate products. Lucy has served as a board member of both the Council of Multiple Listing Service and the Real Estate Standards Organization. She is a proud Seattle, where she enjoys all outdoor opportunities that the Pacific Northwest has to offer. Please welcome to the stage, Andy and Lucy.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and thank you so much for having me here today. Really happy to be here participating in the virtual MLS Summit. And thank you very much for the intro of myself and my colleague, Andy. Andy is actually going to be doing most of the heavy lifting today because he has access to all of the data candy store that we have at Intercontinental Exchange. But I do just want to take one moment to introduce the audience to Intercontinental Exchange, which is probably the biggest company you've never heard of. So some of you may be aware that Black Knight, it was the company that provides the Paragon MLS system. We were acquired in September of 2023 by Intercontinental Exchange, which operates global financial exchanges, including the New York Stock Exchange, and provides mortgage technology, data, and listing services across the globe. So fundamentally, ICE, Intercontinental Exchange, also known as ICE, excuse me, is really fundamentally obsessed with implementing digital transformations that create transparency and seamlessness in every sector in which it operates. And we're striving to do the same for real estate. And given all of the change and uncertainty, some of which Chris Osborne touched on earlier, I feel very fortunate to be part of such a world-class organization.
Thanks, Lucy.
Okay, actually, I'm gonna tee up Andy with our first poll, and I think we're going to, if all of the participants, if you look in your right-hand window, there is a poll button at the top, and you can participate in our polls as we go through. We're going to put you guys to the test and see how much you know about what is going on in the housing industry today. So the first poll, we'd like everybody to answer, what do you expect to see, or what do you anticipate to see from mortgage rates in 2024? Do you expect rates to increase, remain roughly the same, see some modest improvements, or significant improvements through the year? Looks like most people are expecting modest improvement, so between 1/4 and 0.5% decline. Yeah. So let's see how we did. Andy, take it away.
Yeah, and if we go to the next slide, I think those responses are fairly on point there. Not a whole lot of optimists looking for more than 0.5% decline. That's what I would love to see. We'll see how it takes place throughout the year. But if we look at mortgage interest rates right now and kind of where we've been throughout the early stages of the year, there's some good news in that, 3 months ago, if we look, or 4 months ago at this point, if we look back to kind of October of last year, mortgage rates were kind of heading up towards the 8% range. And we saw home affordability, as we'll see here in a second, get to a 39-year low late last year. We've seen some noticeable improvement to start out this year. Interest rates over the last month or so have been kind of in that 6.75% to 7% range. And so if you look at that poll out there and you say, all right, 0.5% decline from that puts us into the 6.25% range by the tail end of this year. That's kind of what most of the economists are saying out there in the market. If you look at Fannie Mae and the Mortgage Bankers Association, they say right around 6%. We had a data and analytics symposium in New York over the last couple of days. We had the chief economist of Freddie there. We had one of the big banks there and a think tank. They were thinking more in the 6.5% range by the tail end of this year. So I think folks in the room are right on point with that kind of modest improvement throughout the tail end of this year, maybe getting into the mid to low 6% range by the end of 2024. If we go to our next slide here, we can start to look at home affordability a little bit. And the way that we measure home affordability is just by looking at median earners out there, so median household income, and how that compares to home prices and interest rates. Or more simply put, if I'm a median earner buying a median home, what share of my income do I need to allocate to making that home purchase? And that's what we're looking at in the dark line on the left side there. And as you can see, as interest rates got up to close to 8%, mortgage rates got up to close to 8% in October of last year, that payment to income ratio got all the way up to 38%, meaning it took 38% of your median income just to make the principal and interest payment on the mortgage purchase at that point in time. That's the least affordable housing had been in 39 years. So some massive, massive challenges that the market was facing last year. And we'll talk about what that did to demand out there in the market. We'll talk about what that did to sales in a little bit. If you look at the improvement that we've seen early this year, we've gone from 38% down to 34%. So, if you're looking at it from a bright side, absolutely, we're in a better position than we were late last year in terms of home affordability. If you look at the expectation as we move throughout the tail end of 2024, if rates get down, let's even say optimistically, rates get down to 6%, it still puts that payment to income ratio closer to 31% nationally. So still in a challenging position. Historically, you'd like to see that closer to 25%. So, we're going to be dealing with unaffordable conditions kind of for the foreseeable future here. A couple other things I would mention about home affordability. Despite the improvement that we've seen over the last few months, still less affordable than it was at the peak of the market in 2006. So again, we're still in a challenging position. The other thing that I think is worth noting is over on the right side here, when we start to look at home price to income ratios, we're pretty stretched in terms of home prices compared to incomes overall. So if you look at kind of the 70s and 80s, last time interest rates, I know a lot of folks like to say, I bought my first home at a 16, 17, 18% interest rate. Back then, the median home price to income was only about 3.5 to 1. And really the pressure that was being put on the market back then by the Volcker era to slow down the broader economy was really just simply interest rate pressure that was being put on the market. As soon as those interest rates subsided, the market kind of took off again and we went back to where we were before. Different dynamic out there in the market right now. We're at about 5.5 to 1. And this is different than it was in the great financial crisis era, 2005. That was built on subprime lending based on me being able to go to my bank as a person that makes $50,000 as a shoe shiner and say, hey, I make $250,000 as a shoe shiner. And they lend to you like you made $250,000 as a shoe shiner in 2005. And it allowed you to buy a lot more home than you could traditionally afford. And it allowed home prices to outpace incomes. Well, what eventually happens is they find out you can't make a $250,000 mortgage payment as a shoe shiner, and the mortgage market collapses and it brings down the broader economy. That's not the type of environment we're in right now. We're in a very solid environment from a mortgage performance standpoint. Seriously delinquent mortgages are at their lowest level in 17 years right now. So this is kind of a combination of coming out of an extremely low interest rate environment that allowed home prices to really build faster than incomes, allowed us to get to that 5.5 to 1. It wasn't built on low quality lending, but it doesn't change the stance that we're still in a really challenging position. It's going to be a multi-year kind of normalization event to kind of bring us back to what feels like more of a normal housing market. We're not going to get there in 2024, likely not going to get there in 2025 in terms of, home price to income equations and home affordability equations. This is going to be multiple years of kind of a gradual return to normalcy in terms of bringing us back in line. If we go to the next slide here, we'll take a little bit closer look at affordability at a geographic level. And I'm not here to tell you that California is less affordable than Ohio, because everybody in this room knows that. But I think what is worth noting in terms of home affordability across the country is how each market lines up against their own loan rate averages, right? In Cleveland, 20% of your income going towards your housing is more normal. In California, a third is more normal. But what we see when we look and kind of compare these benchmarks on a market by market basis is that each market's a little bit more stretched or less stretched than others, right? So again, nationally, I mentioned a 34% payment to income ratio. 34% of a median income is needed to buy the median home right now. Traditionally, it's 25%. So we're stretched by 9 percentage points nationally. So that'd be a plus 9 PP here nationally. If you look across the country, the Midwest looks pretty good, right? Cleveland is actually right at long run benchmarks, even despite everything that's happened in the post-pandemic world. Cleveland looking relatively good. The Midwest isn't too stretched overall. The Northeast isn't too bad. But there are certainly some pockets that are really feeling the pain of home affordability. Miami, parts of the Northeast, your Bostons, your New Yorks, along the West Coast of the US, especially in West Coast California. Los Angeles jumps off the map here. Usually it takes 35, 36% of the median income in LA to afford the median home. It's 67% right now, 31 percentage points above the long run average. You effectively need 2 median earning families both living together in the same home to afford the median priced home in LA. Now, this doesn't correlate with home prices. We'll talk through this in a little bit, why some of these areas are unaffordable and they're still seeing prices grow, because a lot of what's driven prices is inventory right now, but certainly worth understanding these affordability equations and how stretched some of these markets are across the country. If we go into the next slide here, I'm going to just kind of wrap up this opening section talking about demand and what this stretched affordability equation has done to demand, right? So look back at kind of 2022. That's when the Fed first started raising interest rates, right? And these columns here just represent how much demand there is out there in the mortgage and housing market at any point in time compared to pre-pandemic levels. And so what you're seeing is we've been in a deficit zone really from the time that the Fed started raising interest rates in 2022. It reached a crescendo late last year, kind of in that October timeframe when mortgage rates got up near 8%. That that purchase application demand got to a 45% deficit. There were 45% fewer folks out there taking out a mortgage to buy a home late last year than there traditionally are. Now, the optimistic news or the good news here is that as we moved into early 2024, especially January, and mortgage interest rates started to come down, you saw this return of demand, right? We saw this improved demand. And then as rates picked up over the last few weeks, we've seen demand step away. The reason I think that's still good news, despite the fact that purchase mortgage demand, right, there are 40% fewer folks out there applying for a mortgage to buy a home than there traditionally are, is that these trends have been following very closely along with 30-year interest rates. And so what this suggests to me is, at a 6.75% interest rate right now, we're seeing the exact same demand levels that we were seeing last year at a 6.75%. And it suggests that when interest rates begin to ease, that demand is sitting there behind the scenes ready to return to the market. We haven't seen potential home buyers completely step away from the market. They're simply taking a step back because they've been priced out. But as they're priced back into the market, the data currently is suggesting those borrowers are waiting in the wings to step back out there and begin shopping. Lisa, I'm going to turn it back over to you to hit our next poll question here.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Andy. And, affordability is so much top of mind in our industry. Lots of conversation about how we want to address that. We did have, if we go to the next slide, we did have some very eager audience members run ahead and already fill in the poll and really telling us, in terms of the inventory of homes for sale in their market today, pretty strong majorities saying that they have modest inventory shortages in their market. And looking forward, Andy, for you to tell us what you're seeing. What is the data telling us about inventory across the country?
Yeah, absolutely. And the results here are really interesting because I'd be curious to kind of plot where everybody's sitting in their homes right now geographically across the country to see where these responses are coming from, because they're all true, right? Each one of these is true depending on where you're at across the country. And the modest inventory shortages is probably the most true. So really interesting to see those results. If we go to the next slide here, we'll just take a national look at what's going on with inventory, and then we'll get into some of the weeds of what's going on across the country. So on the left side, similar to what we just did with purchase applications, we're looking at the deficit of homes listed for sale. So how many active listings are there at any point in time, and how many would you expect to see in that given month, and how deep is the inventory deficit? It's effectively what we're looking at on the left side. The right side is looking at new listings coming onto the market. Same theory, same methodology, just how short are we in terms of new inflow onto the market at any point in time? And my key takeaway when looking at this one specifically is we got all the way down to roughly a 70% inventory deficit. When the housing market was booming in 2020, interest rates were sub 3%. We had bought down that inventory. That was when home prices were growing at 20% year over year. Offers were flying through the doors. People were offering appraisal gaps and $100,000 over list price. And we all remember what it was like during that time. At that point in time, we were 70% short. There were only 30% of the homes listed for sale that we should traditionally see for that time of year. Now, the good news is we've seen some gradual improvement over time. It's kind of ebbed and flowed depending on what's going on with interest rates and demand out there in the market. But we've seen some gradual improvement. In fact, we had seen 7 consecutive months entering this year where inventory had improved. The inventory deficit improved. We were down to a 36% deficit, which is still fairly severe, but it was the best inventory had been since kind of the mid to late stages of 2020. And then we step into January, and the unfortunate news for January was, if you look over on the right side, new listings, those spring sellers didn't list like they traditionally would. Saw 24% fewer listings in January than you would expect. And the deficit worsened from December to January. We're 40% shy. When we look at February, right, Realtor.com just released their February data over the last couple of days. It's not shown here, but I'll walk you through what it says. It says that in February, if we look over on the right side, it went from minus 24% back to minus 21. A little bit of an improvement. Still, 1/5 fewer homes listed for sale in February than you would have hoped for or expected given the time of year, but a little bit better than the deficit we saw in January. And when you look on the left side, January versus February, it was a minus 40% shortage again. So it didn't get any worse, but it didn't get any better. And we're at minus 40%. Last year at this time, if we compare this spring buying season to last spring buying season, we're 40% short right now. Last year, we were 44% short in January. We were 47% short in February. So what that says is a little bit more inventory out there in the market than what we were seeing at the same time last year. Buyers have a little bit more inventory to shop against. If we go to the next slide here, maybe I'll skip one. I know we're running short on time. Let's skip this one and go to the next slide. This is looking at all the major markets across the U.S. and looking at inventory levels, deficits now versus where they were last year. And again, nationally, I told you, in January, minus 40% this year, we were minus 44% last year, more inventory nationally. The slight majority of markets that's true for. 56% of markets are seeing more inventory. 44% are seeing less inventory than what we were seeing last year. And there are some very interesting geographical differences in terms of what's going on out there in the market, right? So let's read this from left to right. San Antonio, Lakeland, Austin. So Texas primarily seeing more inventory than they were last year. A number of those markets seeing surpluses of inventory compared to what you would expect to see in the early stages of a year. And that's where you're seeing some of the softer prices. Florida, right? Especially Lakeland, Florida, now in a surplus. Cape Coral, Florida, went from a 50% deficit to back to roughly normal levels of inventory. Northport, Florida, went from roughly half the level of inventory that they should have a year ago to normal levels of inventory now. This is true across every major market in Florida, seeing their inventory grow, which means more inventory available to buy. Interest rates higher this year than they were last year, which means probably a softer spring than what we saw last year in those Florida markets. Where's the opposite taking place? Boise, big shift in Boise, right? We all know Boise went from deficits of inventory to surpluses, and the market really softened up in Boise. It was one of the markets that we saw that. Now they're heading in the opposite direction again. Sellers have really been able to grab a hold of inventory. They're not selling like they traditionally would, and it's holding inventory back and prices up in areas where you're not seeing a lot of new construction, right? So Boise has gone from a surplus of inventory down to a 30% deficit again, should firm prices up there. The other major area that I would call out, California. Most of the major markets in California are seeing less inventory this year than they did last year. You're seeing this noticeable shift in what was taking place. California went into oversupply in many areas in late 2022. You saw prices really soften up. Now you're seeing sellers grab a hold of that market. There's no default activity. There's no major new construction activity taking place in California. Inventory falling, prices firming up in California. And then you look over on the right side and you see the areas in the Northeast that have had major inventory deficits. Hartford, Rochester, Albany. Hartford's short 80%, and it hasn't moved an ounce, right? There's still major inventory deficits there in the Northeast, which is holding prices high. If we go to the next slide here, we get into home sale activity. Again, with interest rates hitting 8-year highs, with interest rates hitting nearly 8% last year, home sales hit a 13-year low in December. That's the downside. The good side is that as interest rates have eased early this year, home sale activity is starting to pick up on a seasonally adjusted basis. A little bit of a bump up in January. We just got February numbers yesterday. They were at the highest on a seasonally adjusted basis in 11 months. So you are starting to see that activity pick up because affordability has improved a little bit, which is good news. If you look at forecast for this year, Fannie Mae says 5% growth overall in home sales in 2024. They say 10% growth from 2024 to 2025. So the expectation is, gradual improvement in interest rates, gradual improvement in affordability, gradual improvement in home sale activity as we move through the next couple of years. You can go ahead and jump to the next slide. And I think that's our next poll question.
It is, and I think that you've already given us a little bit of a hint on the answer to this, Andy, but our audience members have been really spot on so far. So next poll, what do you expect to see from home prices in 2024? And we have people coming in and giving our answers. It looks like the consensus is 60%, roughly average price growth of 3 to 5%. Andy,
yeah, and I think,
what does the data say?
I think that's a pretty fair expectation. And you have forecasts in the industry right now in every one of these ranges. I don't know that there's any major ones that say home prices declining this year at this point, but you've got some banks that say 0%. You've got a lot in the 3% range. I think that's kind of where Fannie and MBA have it. Then you've got some folks that say 5% as well. So I think those are all pretty good reads from folks across the country. And again, I think these votes probably vary a little bit depending on where folks are at from a geographic perspective, because I think the outlay this year is going to look a little bit different depending on where exactly you live as well. So if we go to the next slide here, let's start national, and then we'll break it down into the different parts of the country in this section as well. If we skip to the next slide, we can take a look at the latest ICE home price index, right? And our black line here is year-over-year home price change. This is just simply where were we in January versus where were we in January 1 year ago. So kind of a lagging look at what's going on out there in the housing market. And that says home prices were up 5.6%, really from January 2023 through January 2024. What that's really picking up is the heat that was in the housing market early last year when mortgage rates got down to 6%, demand returned, inventory got bought down. You can see over on the right side, last February, March, April, May, June were well above long run average in terms of home price growth. It was a strong spring last year. And then you got to the later half of the year and it was weak in September, October, November, December, because interest rates climbed up to their highest level in 20 plus years, right? So what you're picking up in those annual home price growth rates right now, those year-over-year changes, is really the heat from the spring last year. What you should see is those annual home price rates start to trail down towards 3% as we move towards the middle part of this year. I think the more important thing to look at is what's actually happening on the ground right now. And that's the way that we look at that is month over month, seasonally adjusted changes for the month of January. What would you expect to see for January, and what are we actually seeing? Well, we saw positive 0.2% growth in January. What does that mean? Well, that means if you annualize what we saw in January, it's equivalent to a plus 2.3% annual home price growth rate. That's how hot the housing market is actually on the ground right now. That's roughly half of long run averages. So that would say those people that were kind of in the weaker home price growth to the roughly average home price growth, that would suggest that that's where we're trending at the moment. Now, if interest rates fall, that should immediately pick up that demand side, and you can see inventory starting to weaken, and you can see prices accelerate. If interest rates stay where they're at right now, you're going to see kind of in that 0 to 3% home price growth rate, right? So a lot of it's going to depend on where interest rates move over the next couple of months, especially in those crucial spring months. We're in kind of a neutral zone right now. We're kind of in that positive but low home price growth rate at the moment. If we go to the next slide, we can kind of break this down at a geographic level. And we can look at exactly what happened in January on a seasonally adjusted basis, even in the high end of the market, right? Which is kind of your Northeast and California markets is where you saw a little bit hotter January, hot in quotation marks. Even when you look at Baltimore saw the largest single month growth. It was 0.5% growth month over month. Sounds strong. If you annualize that, that's less than 6% home price growth, even at the high end of the market. That's pretty controlled. That's pretty neutral overall for a high end of the market. On the low end, only four markets saw prices fall on a seasonally adjusted basis in January: Birmingham, Denver, Portland, Pittsburgh. So everybody's kind of in this modestly positive, kind of slightly positive territory right now, kind of a neutral home price growth across the country, which is a vast difference than what we saw, kind of in 2021, 2022, when home prices were flying through the roof across the entirety of the market, in late 2022, when we saw this corrective environment among the western part of the US. Everybody kind of moving in a neutrally positive territory. No big surprise, I'm sure, to anybody that the Northeast is seeing some of the strongest home price growth. That's been what we've seen over the last 10 to 18 months. The area that catches my eye here is California, right? California was one that really corrected in 2022. They're firming up again on that falling inventory and the fact that sellers have kind of taken control, not a lot of new build, not a lot of sellers selling. And so it's softened up here a little bit. Let's skip ahead one slide. Let's skip the next one and let's go to the final one. I know we're tight on time here. So if we skip that one and just go to the last scatter plot here. So this one kind of brings everything together, right? It looks at home affordability, it looks at inventory, and it looks at home prices all in the same place to kind of describe what's going on. Top to bottom, we're looking at inventory deficit. So the further up you are on this scatter plot, the deeper your inventory deficit is. I mentioned Hartford 80% shy of what they should have in terms of inventory. On the bottom are areas that have more inventory than they would traditionally have for this time of year. Left to right, you're looking at home affordability. The further right you are, the less affordable that market is. I mentioned California earlier. It takes 33 percentage points more income in California than it traditionally would to afford a home. And then the color coding is price, right? Areas that are blue have seen prices rise from their 2022 peaks significantly. You've got light gray where prices are down modestly. You've got dark gray where prices are down by more than 3% from their 2022 peaks. That's where we've seen the weakest home prices over the last couple of years. Well, what stands out? Yeah, affordability is a factor here, right? The further right you go, you see a little bit more weakness in prices, but it's really inventory is the story of what's going on with home prices. Areas that are massively short on inventory are still seeing firm home prices, even if it's very unaffordable. Los Angeles and San Diego are pretty firm this spring, even though they're extremely unaffordable. It all has to do with what's going on with inventory on the ground. Anytime we've seen inventory get within 10 to 20% of normal, they don't have to get all the way back to normal levels. Anytime we've seen it get close to normal, you've seen prices really starting to soften. But when you're above that level, when you don't have inventory, prices are remaining firm. And that's kind of been the story of the market. We expect that to continue to be the story. Prices are going to be dictated by inventory. It's putting a floor under prices out there in the market right now and limiting any kind of corrective activity. And it suggests that the market is going to come back to normalization more over time in income growth than it is going to be from massive price corrections across the country, at least for right now, unless we move into a recessionary environment or something like that. There's going to be this kind of floor under prices to some degree across the country. Areas in the top left may see if interest rates fall, those are the areas that could take off again. If interest rates rise, it's those areas in that green square that eyes would be on to see any kind of price softening or price weakening. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Lucy, to kind of wrap us up here.
Thanks, Andy. Always amazed, always enjoy hearing you talk about the housing market and all of the differences, location. It really matters where you are and what's going on. So we did want to tie up with one last poll, and I see people are already filling that in. We wanted to know, as ICE, we want to be a really great partner to you and to the MLS organizations that we work with. And I see that we have a very strong showing here for localized housing market insights as an initiative that we could bring to the table to help really have a positive impact on people's business in 2024 and beyond, which is great. Thank you very much for your participation in the poll. And if we go to the next slide, I do want to invite everybody in the audience to scan this QR code and stay up to date on the latest housing market trends. We do have a Mortgage Monitor report that is circulated on a monthly basis, as well as monthly Mortgage Monitor webinars that Andy facilitates. And so I want to invite everybody here to follow Andy along and all of his great information with our Mortgage Monitor product. And
one last thing I would mention, Lucy, just given that it's 75% or 70% localized market trends, which that brings a smile to my face because that's what I love. But we do have a collateral analytics data set that is real-time, on-the-ground, daily, localized market trends all the way down to the neighborhood level. So for anybody that's interested in that, reach out to Lucy, reach out to me. We're happy to put some of that content in your fingertips as well.
Whew, thank you, Andy and Lucy. That was a fire hose, Andy, I think, if I got to say so myself. But thank you so much, man. Your insights are always so awesome, and I love listening to your presentation. And Lucy, thank you so much for being a part of today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Have a great day. quick little tech talk from no other but Nikki Morgan. Nikki Morgan is an MLS sales executive for CRS Data. With over 25 years of experience in the technology industry, Nikki has been with CRS Data for the last 11 years. She is known for engaging with leadership and users throughout the onboarding process with CRS Data. She is a key player and the go-to specialist when going live with CRS Data. It shines through when she educates and trains brokers and agents to utilize CRS Data and software, and how to apply those tools to daily tasks to be more efficient and provide a depth of property-based knowledge to agents and consumers. Please welcome to the stage our last tech talk, Nikki Morgan.
Hello, that was very nice, Jeff. Thank you very much. You speak very fondly of me. I didn't even know how to write that myself, so thank you very much. Everybody can hear me? Everything's good to go? Yes?
Wait just 1 second, Nikki.
Okay.
Is she on stage there?
She will be. Yes, we're good.
Okay, you look like you're ready to go, Nikki.
Okay, perfect. And I believe that I'm going to have some assistance and someone is going to bring my slides up for me as well. Perfect. Perfect. All right. And while she's pulling that up, I'm just going to talk a little bit. We are super excited to be part of this event. Year after year, when I'm asked, I just jump right on it no matter where I'm at. So we appreciate that. And we support everybody that's with us today. I am happy to say that not only CREN, New Mexico, North Carolina Regional, as well as Prime MLS, all use CRS Data, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So I really appreciate all of you. So let's go ahead and get started. What I did was I put together just a roadmap, and I want you to understand that our roadmap is defined by our users. The only way we become part of the solution and remain a part of the solution is to continue to ask those questions and make sure that we're realigning what our goals are for any given year based on what you say your needs are. So if we can pass on by and let's hit up the next slide, we can talk a little bit about what we've done and where we're going. Some of you have seen, those of you that haven't may need to have a conversation with me about how you can be part of this big project and being part of bringing CRS Data to your members. But more recently, we've done some CMA enhancements. We went in and made sure that everything was easy to read and created some multilingual options as well. We did go in and do some changes to our property search. We have grown substantially as far as a team is concerned. And we welcomed with that a new MLS project manager. So she's kind of got us on track for doing some things that we've wanted to do for quite a long time. So we're super excited to say that we'll be moving in and looking at more facts and figures. Along with that, we're going to do some in-app guides and even some map updates. You folks have got great ideas, and I can't tell you enough to continue to bring those to us from feedback as we will go through and enhance those maps, enhance profiles and settings. Now, I'm on the road, as Jeff said. Not only do I sell CRS Data, but I take it as a personal challenge to make sure that I also help users adopt and see what having all of this useful data does for their relationship with the consumer. So I really want to make sure as I'm training and I ask the question, did you know that not only did we have a conversation to create CRS Data for your members with your leadership, but they also thought it was a great idea for you to have your own profiles and settings and be able to do your end user customizations. I find that your members aren't doing enough of that. So we're going to enhance that a bit further, make it a bit easier not to have to stumble upon, but to realize the benefit there. We're going to be enhancing the points of integration between the MLSs, the platforms, and CRS Data. Again, all about what you're talking to us about doing. In 2024 and 2025, and moving in that direction, it's all about a 360-degree view on properties. all the data one could ever look for. My goal is that it comes very naturally that you jump into CRS data and you're pulling all the information that you need from me in a familiar format that is easily interpreted for that consumer. So they don't have to ask a ton of questions. It comes very naturally. We are supporting and bringing to the table, most of you with the 4 that we talked about earlier are going to see fiber data. If you haven't already, you will need to watch out for it, because within the coming weeks, you're going to have access to fiber data. We're also mending up a partnership with Green Data. That's also going to be an option. And with that, again, all of this property report information and functionality and enhancements will start to come together as we talk about things like, do you want to be able to move containers around on the property report? Are you looking for something that should be closer to the top that normally appears closer to the bottom? So again, that's a lot about 24, 25, with exception to, I do want to definitely announce that listing integrity, just another product that CRS Data is ready to show you. If you haven't already seen it, we'll be doing demos at NAR 2024, starting at the mid-year show. So definitely get in touch with me if you want to take a look at that. And then lastly, as far as this is concerned, something we'll be doing in 2025 or late 2024 is we're going to do the transition or upgrade to Google Maps. So that's super exciting as well. I've been on that, pushing that for quite a while. So we are looking forward to seeing that. And if we'll move on to the next slide, we'll just keep going through this today. All right, so back to, and just to kind of touch and give you some visual aids. Here's what we're talking about when we talk about the property enhancements when we're talking about fiber data. So for those of you, again, from Prime, from New Mexico, from CREN, and from the North Carolina Regional Group, you will have, if you don't already see it today, within the next couple of weeks, the internet access section on the property report. Take a look at that. These are questions our consumers are asking us. So again, that first photo gives you an idea of what to expect to see based on the area or county that we're delivering data in. The photo to the right actually shows you what we'll do with Green Data should you want to talk to me about adding Green Data if you haven't already. Just the next conversation piece. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about that at AEI or at NAR mid-year. And we'll move on to the next slide. Other major enhancements will be more facts and figures. Like I said previously, it's all about bringing everything we can find into our facts and figures and property reports. We know how very important it is to give consistent, easy to translate data to your consumer. So what we're trying to do is ask the question, what are we missing? What other statistics would you like to see all coupled in within CRS Data? What else can we offer? And we're looking to you. So we made the enhancements you see in front of you, but think about what else as we move to the next slide. Go ahead. Now, again, more of the same, but again, enhancements. For those of you that have been around a long time, most of you have been. We've been in conversations for a long time and or customers doing business together for a long time. These facts and figures, when I came to CRS Data more than 12 years ago, definitely did not have this sort of take me away and show me what I need to see and allow me to understand what I'm looking at. We've done a great job, and I appreciate all the work that my team's put into it, but I'm ready for more. So I'm looking to you to give us more to work with. So next slide. All right. Other enhancements that you may or may not have noticed that I think are important to mention at this point. I always talk to our users about the fact that data is data, and you need to be able to understand where it comes from and that it's multiple sources, as well as how often and how it differs from county to county as far as the frequency of updates. Therefore, you're able then to report to us, and we can look at additional sources or keep up with and kind of point out places that we need to do something a little bit different. So at the bottom of each page, members, users have access to data currency. I found that it wasn't as intuitive or understandable as what we thought, right? We're in data. We see it all the time. Why wouldn't you know what that is kind of concept? But as we went out to our users, we discovered that wasn't as easy to interpret as one would have thought. So click on data currency. Feel free to reach out to any one of our people and ask the question to understand more clearly or with clarity what your data looks like. And when there's a blank, what does that mean? And what are the elements that are being provided? Another enhancement, we heard as we did a review of our systems that the text boxes that are displayed on maps just weren't big enough. They just didn't have enough information. Maybe they weren't popping out in a way that had a lot of clarity. So we just changed that up. A little bit of a new design makes every difference in the world. As we move on to the next slide, let's look at some more. Enhancements on maps. You did notice probably 2019, early 2020, we released enhancements to our prospecting page. We went all at it. We decided to clean that up and do a lot of enhancements when it came to additional filters and criteria. Now, we didn't think that we were going to stop there. And so we've put that back on our list for 2024 to make additional map changes. And when we start to do that, we always realize, and when I'm training, it's helpful to say, I want my map, no matter where I stumble upon it, to feel so familiar that my activity might be different, but the map feels exactly the same. So that the buttons are consistent, that you can easily find what you need to do or go forward or go back from. So what you're going to see is us reaching out, quite possibly because the changes we make come from you. So we'll reach out and ask you questions about what if you had an option to tell me what to do to change the map? What button should be somewhere else? Does it just need to be larger? What are we missing and what can we make better? And that's what we're going to do with the maps and be consistent across the program as we move into the next slide. All righty. So other things, we talked a little bit about profiles and settings and the fact that right now in the upper right-hand corner, right next to the help tab, and I'm going to give the help tab a little bit of credit right now. My tip or trick that was just published in the note from Sarah's desk in the last couple of days was the help tab in the far right-hand corner goes unnoticed. Someone mentioned earlier the idea that they wanted an opportunity to have a 24/7 kind of personal assistant, if you will. So if I'm doing business in the middle of the night and I don't remember where I need to go from here to do prospecting or to modify my facts and figures, we do have on the far right-hand corner, a way to click on that help button, which is content responsive, that leads you to videos and FAQs in regards to the page you're visiting. So just keep that in mind. That kind of is in the same vein. In regards to the profiles and settings tab, used to be profiles and settings. Now it just says settings. It does all the same things, but I'm considering what we need to do to make sure that people see it and understand what it is. Those in-app guides are going to help people to understand how important it is to be able to go into your property report and uncheck areas that you don't want included in your property reports by default. Instead of having to remember to exclude the listing archive. Listing archive's not really important to your consumer. So why do I have to exit out every time I come to a property report? If you were aware, in the settings and on this particular screenshot, you could uncheck listing archive and click save and no longer have that section on your screen by default and ask for it as an on-demand request versus turning it off each and every time. So these are things that I want to make sure that are easily accessible and are being utilized to their fullest experience. So maybe that means I'm going to ask you where we should move it, what we should do to make it stand out. These end user customizations are something you don't find everywhere. And I want to make sure that I'm covering them all and they all are easily accessible as we move to the next slide. All right, so comparables. This is, I would have to say, my baby to some extent. I was involved more, I had my hands and my feet all in the comparables as we changed it. The first thing that I recognized was our members, our users, they have a voice. So we went through this whole process and it never dawned on me, and I think it was us as a group, that the Quick CMA, there were people that were using it and there were people that it was the best resource they had, depending on what type of properties they were selling, whether it was the difference between a commercial real estate agent and those of residential agencies. So plain and simple, we did this great CMA change and we released the CMA with the client ready report, which was great, right? Is it perfect? Does it need to continue to be looked at? Well, you and I both know that we as vendors, as the solution, we're delivering these solutions and we're in a world of ever-changing needs. So I don't ever consider anything 100% complete. We must keep ourselves on the edge of ready to make a change or move based on the way our members are telling us that their needs have changed. So that seems quite natural. So there are going to be more comparable changes. But again, back to when we first launched it, I want to say it was maybe 2.2 seconds after we released it, and I realized that we were removing the Quick CMA, that the phone started to ring from you, the people that said, wait a minute, that Quick CMA doesn't need to go anywhere because it is also needed. So again, before the day's end, the Quick CMA was back up as well, introducing itself to CMA's 2 ways with CRS data. So not sad that you spoke and we were able to quickly respond. And we always want to be that vendor for you as we move to the next slide. All right, so what else? Now, this is where our wheels are going, right? So we see all the light bulbs. So this is early kind of conversation. We have talked about new map layers such as sold to list ratios and the number of listings. We talk about incorporating more MLS data such as listing agent, days on the market into advanced property search. We've also talked about merging MLS market information into existing facts and figure reports. These are things that you may or may not have remembered. We've done several surveys. So these made it to that launching point that we need to really start thinking about these now, asking more questions about what you envision as users of our program, and then what that looks like on paper. Maybe even asking for some people to come together and help us to make those final adjustments so that when we're ready to bring this to market, you guys are going to recognize this just like I recognize the CMAs as part of, you know, my brainchild. I see things in that I go, oh, that was my idea. I want you to be able to do the same thing because like I said, you're a big part, more so than me, of creating or bringing these types of things to the MLS Tax Suite as we move to the next slide. One more slide there, Sarah Fogg, please. Thank you. Oh, all right. So more of the same, again, just talking through more of those ideas. So import data from facts and figures directly into the property report. So who's to say that facts and figures, which for the record are attached to each and every property report when you go in and pull a property report up, if we can envision, for those of you that use us, for those of you that don't, I just think we need to have a conversation where I can sit and do a demo for you. So as we do that, again, the property report has tabs across the top, and from that property report, you can easily do a CMA. You easily go into prospecting, and then you can easily open up by tapping and see a list of different facts and figures. Those can be subdivision reports. They can be neighborhood stats. They can be traffic counts. So who's to say you won't want to, or we couldn't incorporate those directly into the property report? Maybe it's an on-demand opportunity. I don't know. Let's talk about it. Improved printing capabilities for cleaner presentations. Always something that people ask for, and always something that we're looking at and trying to determine how do we do that without taking our eye off the ball, which is CRS is all about tax data. We don't want to do 100 million different things. We want to make sure that we keep the data clean and that we've got our resources pointed at what is most important to you. So if cleaner presentations is what we need to do, then we absolutely need to put people on that. But this, again, is all about us looking at that and how much weight we put in that, and all directed by you. Lastly, interactive tools allowing users to text address to prospects or email a link to the property report. Right now, we're not doing any of that. I know with me years ago, no one ever did anything but sent me an email. Now it's clear most of my AEs have my cell phone number, and it doesn't matter whether it's 10 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning, because I've got my Canada folks. I don't know if Bonnie is still on here, but then I've got people like Jeff Kren, and then I've got people in Oregon, North Carolina, in my own neck of the woods. So sometimes a text message is easier. If I don't have my laptop sitting in front of me, I'm going to see that text message. It's going to be quick and easy to get you what you need. So personally, if I was in your business, I would want the ability to text an address to a prospect or click a link and attach it to a text message. So I'm a fan, and I'm going to find out if you're fans as well. So as we move to the last slide, I do want to once again reiterate that what we do has everything to do with you, and what you tell me is most important. And we try to make sure that we're available to you. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that leaves me really, really happy at CRS Data, is that I'm a person that is super transparent and super genuine with my relationships, and consider all of you that travel with me and go around the world to the trade shows and do what we need to do, friends, right? So for me, it's very clear that we work together to be part of your solution, and we are accessible to you. So I do my best to make me completely accessible to you. And that's really why I work for CRS Data, because that is, that's really what this company is all about. So we are all about connecting property data details from multiple sources in one spot and saving you time and effort. And, finally, the conversation starts with leadership, and then it's about the members and what your members need. And again, we pride ourselves on developing a solution that's not a one size fits all, but being able to do customizations, whether it's simply the difference between an APN number or a PPIN or a parcel ID. Every individual, area, or member needs something slightly different. And if we weren't willing to mold and conform to your needs, I don't think that I could say that I want to be your vendor for life, because it's only by being able to modify and give you what your needs are that I can, walk side by side for you from now until forever, as far as I'm concerned. So I appreciate each and every one of you. And again, for those of you that don't use CRS Data, find me. I'll be more than happy to sit down and have that same conversation. I mean, after all, Jeff, how many years did we do this before you came to me and said, we're ready to go, right?
Yeah, many years. Yes.
Years.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for a great, passionate presentation.
Jacksonville, North Carolina, is a city that embodies a strong sense of community and patriotism. With a rich history and a diverse population, it offers a range of opportunities for residents and visitors alike. The city is committed to education, culture, and inclusivity, and its downtown area is undergoing revitalization, with new businesses and restaurants adding to its appeal. Home to Marine Corps, Base Camp Lejeune, and Marine Corps Air Station. New River, Jacksonville is a hub for military activity and a significant part of the city's identity. Its proximity to the Atlantic Ocean provides access to beautiful beaches and water activities, making it a unique and vibrant place to live and visit. The Jacksonville Board of Realtors represents over 1,000 brokers who follow the Realtor Code of Ethics and are dedicated to protecting the housing rights of all. As a thriving and inclusive community, Jacksonville offers a dynamic and welcoming environment that fosters a strong sense of community and patriotism. Overall, Jacksonville, North Carolina is an inspiring city showcasing what our country stands for. Its military presence, rich history, and commitment to education and culture make it an ideal place to call home. The Jacksonville Board of Realtors is proud to represent this thriving and inclusive community.
Our next panel is going to discuss the potential future of commissions. In the past, compensation was almost always guaranteed when bringing a buyer to a transaction. Today, that compensation is under attack. Compensation as we know it may totally change. What does that mean for the role of the buyer's agent? Our discussion will focus on the role of the agent and broker will play in today's environment. The three panelists are Bill Fowler, Vice President of Real Estate Strategy at Modern Tech, Kat Newell, Vice President Business Innovation at the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, and Marilyn Wilson, President, Wave Group and RE Technology. Bill, Kat, and Marilyn, welcome to the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Great to be here.
Take it away, you guys.
Okay. Bill, are you going to start us off with your wisdom?
I think Bill's still muted.
Oh. Okay. Well, I can jump in if you want to just kick it off, and then we can go from there. So, I mean, obviously, this is a topic that's a little hot right now, just kind of important. People are paying a little attention to it. And, you know, we can look at these things in so many different ways, you know, and I think we probably all go through these on a daily basis. Sometimes we're freaking out thinking the world's ending. Other times we're like, we can make it work. And so I think today we're going to kind of talk about a little of all of those things. But I think the first thing I would say is panic is probably not a good strategy, right? We have to go beyond that. And we have to remind ourselves, I think, that this is something I always say, and hopefully you guys agree with me. You know, in real estate, we're scrappy. We're scrappers and we're scrappy, right? So we'll figure it out one way or the other. But it is going to take us thinking differently, questioning, quote, norms, questioning that, you know, what this is the way we've always done it, right? Because we have a tendency to do that like every industry does. You know, so thinking about what does it look like from here. And, you know, I think the first thing that I would love to just talk about is just maybe set the stage a little bit. We've done a fair amount of research on this topic, right? So as we know from the lawsuits, the way that those are all played out, you know, they want to tell everyone that consumers don't really understand the process, that, you know, that they don't understand they can negotiate, they don't understand really how it works. And as Wave Group, as you know, we do a lot of research, and I was like, I just don't fundamentally believe that it's that bad. Right. So we've actually done 3 different studies over the last 6 months with all with consumers, all with people that have bought a home in the last 3 years. And what I guess our net takeaway would be is it's not as bad as they say, but it could be better than it is. That makes sense. Right. So in all 3 studies, almost exact same numbers came through that about 58% of people clearly understood they could negotiate the commission. Probably about that same number understood who gets paid by what, how the commission process works, right? So there's a good chunk of people that do understand it, but we still have a lot of room to, I mean, and I would say in a proud way, raise the stature of buyer's agents, help people be proud and prepared and comfortable to talk about their value proposition. And we can talk a little bit later about maybe there's some ways we can help you actually do that. But consumers definitely want to know what commissions are. They definitely, more than not believe that they are negotiable. But again, we're not as far along as I think we could be. And, I think there's some things all of us can do to help that process. Bill, can we hear you now?
I think we can.
Good.
So thank you.
Go back.
Yeah, I mean, I was unmuting and then I was being muted again, and I was just thought no one wanted to hear me talk today, which is not unusual actually, but that's what we're here to do. So yeah, thanks for tap dancing, Marilyn, and great intro. And in our prep call for this, I think we started out with this big picture question that I'd love to hear from both of you. And you touched on it a little bit, Marilyn, is why should buyer's agents be worried? Generally speaking, why should there be, I guess, furrowed brows and concern from buyer's agents, generally speaking, not just based on what the legal update we had earlier, but also just based on process, access to data, the systems that are in place to help the average consumer get to the point where most buyers had started years ago, and now that's more of the workflow has been interrupted and improved on the consumer side. So I guess maybe we'll throw this to you, Kat. I mean, just again, generally speaking, what's the answer to the question is why should buyer's agents be concerned?
Yeah, thanks, Bill, and thank you everyone for having me here today. It's a great speaker panel. So why should buyer agents be worried? We live in an information age. There is information all around us, and the consumer can go ahead and find everything about a property, not as easy as agents can, but they can be very well educated on their own and make their own decisions. So I think that's one of the aspects we should be concerned about. There is a greater and greater opportunities for the consumer to shop around because information is becoming more and more readily available in our market. So I really do think that there should be a place for agents to place that worry and figure out, so what is their value proposition in the market? And also, talking about the commissions and what does that do? And I think with the legal update and everything we've heard, it just enables the consumers to ask more questions. And as agents, there need to be answers to those questions on what does that mean for me with the commissions as a consumer, what does it mean for me as a buyer, and being able to ask those questions and be ready with answers that supports the value proposition of the buyer agent in our information age where everything is so readily available for us.
Yeah, you say value proposition. I think that's maybe a term that is new for some people. And as I used to work for a brokerage for a while, and this is a term that Marilyn, I'm sure, is very used to, but being able to express your value is like being able to say what you do for a living. When someone is about to write you a check and they feel like that they've gotten their money's worth, the precedence of that is to be able to express exactly what you've done to earn that money. And on the seller side, and this is something you brought up again in our prep call, Marilyn, which I think was very important, is that the value prop for a seller is very evident. And that's an obvious thing. There's a lot of physical activity. There's a lot of the showing process, the educational process, the communication process. And I think on the buyer side, as you just mentioned, Kat, a lot of consumers think that they can sell their own, they'll find their own properties, do their own research, and then approach the transaction in a much clearer way, honestly, than most agents can that have occupied that position. Marilyn, you and I see a lot of companies, a lot of prop tech companies that are entering the market to help buyers make better decisions and better intelligence. What is your take on this concept that a buyer's agent really is a transaction manager now and not so much a tour guide like they used to be?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. But the problem is, I think, and it's all coming from the right place, but it's not helping us, right? So if you ask a lot of consumers, what does buyer's agent do, right? They're like, oh, they just do paperwork. Right? They don't really understand what that means. And the greatest agents make it look so easy. They're just like the best athletes, right? They make it look like they could hit 3-pointers all day long, right? And a lot of the work that's done is behind the scenes, not in front. And that's on purpose, right? You want them to go, I've got this, you don't need to worry, right? But sometimes we're so good, they don't really know what we're doing and they think it's that easy, right? So there's this fine balance of, and we've done a lot of research over the years asking consumers about, the perceived value of their agent or whatever. And over and over and over we hear, I valued my agent so much more after the transaction than I did going in, because they never told me what could go wrong, how they're going to help it not go wrong, how they're going to fix it if it does go wrong, and all the steps they go through and how many hours it takes. One of the studies we just published that I think is a really good example of this is we asked consumers that bought in the last 3 years, approximately how many hours do you think your agent spent processing your home or being your support mechanism? And it was clear as mud. Some said an hour, some said 150, some said 1,000. They had no idea. And frankly, when I ask buyer's agents that same question, they also don't really know how many hours it takes, right? And it's not even the hours. It's not like we're just trying to be like, oh, look how hard we're working, but it's the value, it's the insight, it's the data, it's the counseling. I mean, there's so many things buyer's agents do through that process, and we're just not doing enough. Like, we're too humble, bottom line.
Yeah, well,
that's how I would say it. We're too humble.
Go ahead, Kat.
Yeah, exactly. So I think and I bought my first house not too long ago. And I think the value that you, as a consumer, you put to your agent, you don't understand. As an average person, you transact maybe every 7 years, and that process you go through, you forget. The agent transacts on a much more frequent basis, and that knowledge that the agents have on what the process is to go through the transaction, to know what is the neighborhood, the paperwork, the pitfalls, what can go wrong, what cannot go wrong, and that whole taking the buyer on the journey. That is what as an agent, you need to make sure that value that you bring is really made explicit to the consumer, because I didn't know. Right. So I didn't know what went into the whole, and I'm sure my agent, he spent a lot more time than, what I thought he needed to do. But I think there's just so much value that can be made much more explicit to the consumer and can be explained so much better, so we can provide that value to the consumer. The buyer agents are hugely valuable with their knowledge, and they should be rewarded as such. It's so
it's interesting. In the 3 different studies that we've done, again, it's weird, the numbers, I guess that's why it's called statistically relevant, right? In all 3 cases, we asked people, was their agent worth the money? Because frankly, I was worried, because the first one we did was in 21 when it was like insane, right? And in every single case, regardless of how busy it was, regardless of how many offers, how many disappointments they went through, how much affordability they're going through now, 88% of them said their agent earned their money, right? So it's not like, this is why these lawsuits drive me crazy, because I believe the people that actually work with us do find value. I think the question, and it's what you were just saying, Kat, is how do we make sure we define that up front, not at the end of the process, but at the beginning of the process, right? And again, how are we making sure that we're very clear? I mean, obviously the whole thing about you're not getting it free, all that stuff. I think hopefully we're past that stage, right? But that's really the question, is how do we help people understand? And again, I look at it in a positive way. How do we raise the stature of the buyer's agent to just be as high as the listing agent? There was a comment in the comments, which I love. It said, hey, we're talking about buyer's agents, but there's listing agents that do nothing. If they put it in the MLS and they walk away, that's going to be our next problem. And don't disagree with you at all about that. But right now we're trying to see, how do we fix this side? We'll come to that one next, but.
Well, let me, as we're going to settle on this particular topic and move on to another, but I guess the broader question really comes back to process and informing the consumer on the process. I was just noticing that there are 424 people that are watching this live stream right now, and I guarantee you a vast majority of them are checking their phones while they're sort of listening to us, because they're working all the time. And so as back in the agency days, or ad agency days, I would have to catalog, just like an attorney does. Every 15 minutes, I'm telling, my overlords exactly what I'm doing from a timesheet standpoint. And I'm not so sure that isn't a valuable tool for agents as well to express their value, just in sheer hours, in sheer number of texts and phone calls and conversations and so forth. The gap between, especially on the buy side, what a consumer has access to in terms of just resources. I mean, varying degrees of relevance and integrity, I realize. But once they get to an agent, they're often very late in the process. They're doing their own research. They're finding their own. They have a stack of files that they bring into this transaction. So it's often very difficult for a buyer's agent, I think, to express that value, but no less important. So let's transition a little bit and go to the other side of the coin. Here is again something that we discussed a little bit earlier. Is why shouldn't buyer's agents be concerned? Like what is the ground that is not going to be eroded in this process? Why are buyer's agents going to remain relevant?
And that's a really good question. They're again trying to get away from these lawsuits because I think it gives all of us a headache. I know it does me. I'm sure it does all of you guys too. I mean, buying a house is not easy. Finding a house, buying a, again, people think, oh, I just go to, random website X, find it. And then it, just all randomly falls in my place. It is not that case. But again, I think we're always going to be meaningful, but we got to make sure that we're not taking that for granted. Right. And the other thing that I'm just seeing working with a lot of MLSs and people out there is the policies that we have all counted on and that we've all abided by, for lack of a better name, those are all at risk, right? To your point, Bill, about process, right? It may change. So what if what if commission goes out of the MLS completely? Does that change your perceived value? Because people don't really know what you do. Do you have to become a better negotiator? Do you have to have great relationships with sellers agents so they do want to pay you? Do you have to demonstrate that you're like, I don't know where all that goes, right? But I think it's important to think about that. If we don't just assume that you walk into an environment, it's called the MLS now, who knows what it'll be called in 10 years, and it's already there for you. What if it isn't already there for you? What are you going to do to make sure people know that you're worth the money?
I'm thinking about, Marilyn, you and I have a particular business model. We're both consultants and we do work based on a lot of different things, and we have to be malleable. I wish there was a percentage that we got based on something. Some regulatory body told us how much we were going to get paid and we can count on that. But being a transaction manager, I know that's like a term that we don't like to throw around. It feels like it's diminishing the value in some way, but I do think that we need to rethink how we approach our payment structure and to be a little more malleable about that. I think one of the things that the DOJ has a problem with is that there's, on one side of the transaction, there's a party that walks in having done a questionable amount of work and gets paid a very concrete amount of money. And that sounds like shenanigans from a consumer standpoint. And I realize that that's not a popular opinion. It just happens to be the prevailing opinion. So Kat, throwing this question to you, you see agents all the time. You serve quite a number of buyer's agents. What would you consider maybe a blind spot of this population of people? Maybe a little bit of myopia. They're kind of just task oriented and they're maybe not looking at the forest for the trees here. What are some things that you are advising or maybe would consider advising your buyer's agent members of your organization on maybe how they can improve in this aspect?
Oh, there's a vast array of things where we can see. Again, going back to what I said before, what a buyer agent does is very tacit knowledge. It's like learning how to walk. How do you learn how to walk? It's difficult to express. And from an agent perspective, because they are used to doing and transacting on a daily basis, to them it's second nature. It's not second nature to consumers. And so that tacit knowledge that we have is just, so that second nature knowledge has to be expressed so much better. And it has to be publicized and shouted from the rooftop because there is so much value. In terms of why they shouldn't be valued, I think there are so many tools out there for our members, for our agents, for them to support their market, support themselves, support their clients to be better. One of the things I've heard from consumers I've heard from agents is they're missing calls, or, I tried to get a hold of this agent, it's not returning my calls. And these are all anecdotal, but it still happens. And I've heard it enough times. And so I think, and as you said, Bill, 500 or 430 some agents, they'll be on this summit, but they will also be working, a number of them, checking their phones, making sure they're getting back to it. I think the market is so much more active. And I think there is so much more out there for the agents, because it's such a big network of agents out there that there's so much for them to deal with. Sitting from a technology perspective that I sit with and deal with on a daily basis, when I see tools coming in, new prop tech, we always have to make that evaluation. Is there something for the agent? Is it something for the association or the MLS? Now I represent both association and an MLS. Or is it something that's already good for the brokerage? And I think there's tools out there that can support the agents. I think there's tools out there that can support the brokerage. We heard ICE come in with their presentation. I think those sort of very informative tools and those tools to support agents, we can talk about social media as well. I think those are the things that will help the agents stay relevant, because I don't think there will ever be a time where there is not a relevance for agents. It's the value that they bring to the market on a daily basis is hugely impressive.
Let me ask you a question, Marilyn, related to that. Is you said earlier in the intro that there's no replacement for the agent. You feel like that maybe we'll get paid more, the good ones get paid more, and the ones that aren't that great are going to kind of maybe wash out of the system. Is a buyer's agent's ability to express their value and a track record and their expertise, it's that elevation and that branding and that personal experience is going to allow for maybe fewer agents to operate on the buy side, but really probably make more money ultimately in the future, than opposed to just kind of showing up at a closing and getting a check. I mean, there is a dividing line here, and there's a lot of them. I think we all realize that our numbers are as high as they've ever been. It doesn't mean that everybody's producing, and so the doers will do, and those that don't will no longer. Is that an accurate assumption?
I mean, that's what happens now. We did a study a couple of years ago with MLS data, and it wasn't even the 80-20 rule. It was more like the 85-15 rule.
Yeah.
And some MLSs have as much as 20, 30, 40% of people that have not done a transaction. And that is scary. I mean, that's kind of another boil the ocean question about how do we right size the industry, right? That's really kind of what we're saying is, and is it our job? Does capitalism take care of that for us? I don't know. I mean, I would love to see, we hear a lot of this. I would love to see every broker take their job as overseer and manager and trainer very, very seriously, because every time somebody goes out in the market and does not reflect a completely professional attitude, it affects everyone in the industry, right? So yeah, I mean, will it happen? I mean, I don't know. I was talking to an attorney this morning, and he was saying, and I hope this never happens, but we don't know where all these lawsuits are going. Is there ever a time when agents are going to have to pay back the commissions that they got out of all these lawsuits? If that's the case, there's some feedback going on there. Anyway, if that ever happened, it'd be really interesting to see what happens, because the people that would have to pay back the most are the most productive agents. Right. And could they afford to do that? Right. I would hope that, I'm just praying to the legal gods that somebody figures out how to make this in a fair way, that we don't kill off the real estate process with all of these stupid lawsuits, right? I hope we can find a way through this. But could it happen? Yeah. I mean, can brokers think through that too? Could they say, brokers have been trained with butts and seats, right? That's the way we work. Could we help them as MLSs, as consultants, model what it might look like if they followed the 85-15 rule and had 15% of their agents, but had just as much or potentially more product profitability? When you have desk fee-based models, that doesn't work, right? But are there some things that we can be thinking about? I think every group has to, and I hate to be this person, because those that know me know I'm not the doom and gloomer. But I do think we all have to look at the absolute worst case scenarios of what could happen, pretend it's going to happen tomorrow, because in this world it could, we don't know, right? And prepare every part of the industry for the worst case and say, all right, what would we do better to ingratiate ourselves to our customers so well that they'll I don't care about that dumb old lawsuit. You do a phenomenal job for me. And agents do this already, obviously, right? but thinking about, all the potential things that could go on. What if there's 20% as many brokerages? What if there's 20% as many MLSs? What if NAR isn't here anymore? I mean, all the things that we're all talking about, right? Think through all of those. First, you have to get through the moment, that I'm scared to death moment, right? But it's a lot easier to do it when you're in a quiet place before it hits you in the, somebody sends you a note and says, tomorrow, this is what's got to have to happen. So then, the people that are supposed to be in the business have thought about it, have prepared. And this summit's a great example of that, by the way, right? They've thought about it, they've prepared for it. They've gotten active. They've talked to the right people. So commission, for example, we just had a conversation about this yesterday. If a commission comes out of the MLS, after getting through the shock and awe of it, brokers I were talking to said, okay, I think we can survive. But you have to think about, to your point, Bill, how will we do it? And how will it not decrease the amount of consumer transparency that's out there?
Well,
right? How do we, so it's better for them and us and not worse for both?
Well, I want to steer that back to Kat and ask a question that you brought up a minute ago. Another interesting statistic that comes out of our work is that in doing strategic plans for MLSs, and I've done several of those in the last 18 months, and I think this is the statistic that you mentioned, Marilyn, around 35% of membership. I mean, across the board, and the MLSs that I've looked at are very small to the pretty large, regionals down to the Association of MLSs. 35% of all membership has 0 transactions over the last 36 months. And that includes it's raining houses period of COVID. And in that case, looking at UCAT, from an MLS perspective, from an association/MLS perspective, are we doing enough? Are we making the plans? Are the whiteboards full of contingency plans? Is it our responsibility to equip our member agents? Is it the broker's responsibility to state these value propositions? From a macro standpoint, what does the MLS have as a responsibility to answer all questions?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. So looking at it very sort of pragmatically and holistically, one of the things we can do is on behalf of the members of the broker agents is look ahead, right? So we have agents, they are very focused on the next deal, and they should be. And so this is how they serve the market and go looking at what's happening tomorrow, what's happening next week. As an MLS, we look much further down the line. We have to look at what is happening in the market, what is not just the market, but also from a political standpoint, and all other aspects, what's happening with NAR, and here in Canada, it's CREA. And so is there any way we can read the tea leaves? Is there any way we can read that crystal ball and see what we can do from an MLS perspective to educate, to support, change the MLS, provide more tools and services from an MLS perspective, association perspective, that will help our members, broker agents, to look further ahead, be that strategic voice for them in the market. So we get to a place where we can support the market and we can change our own rules before the rules are changed for us. And so we're trying to do that as much as possible in our association, our MLS, as much as we possibly can. So what do we see? What conversations are we having with government relations? What conversations are we having, with the regulator in our market, and see what we can do to get ahead of their concerns. So we support the market before the rules are changed on us. And I think that's something that's really important from an industry sort of pragmatic perspective, that we look much further ahead from a much more strategic perspective than what the agent is able to do on a daily basis. That I think
that's the
is
quote of the day.
Important.
Sorry to cut you. I think the quote of the day so far is change your rules before they're changed for you. Pretty. I think that's thinking like a business, really, when you just kind of come right down to it, looking over the walls of your own market and determining what's about to, head your way. Marilyn, thoughts on that?
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with everything you just said. We have to do that. And the hard part is, and again, this is a great example of what you should be doing, right? If you're in the MLS boardroom, and you're in a progressive MLS, which I know all the ones that are sponsoring this are, you're hearing what's going on out there. But again, you put your head down, you don't know what's happening. So how can the MLS, even if it does nothing else but educate to start, and I don't mean once, I mean like all the time, because this stuff is changing every day. There's something new that's happening. And finding that balance of listening to the needs and wants of the local market versus the national sort of requirements, right? Are those national requirements going to stay with us? Are they going to become more of a guide or a best practice as opposed to an absolute gotta have? All of those things are up for grabs. And so, and it takes time. If you've been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years, like many broker owners have and many agents have, it's just, this is what we do. And you don't even think about it. But when someone questions it, people go back on their heels and they get defensive. Like, well, this is the way we do it. Like, whoa, before we get defensive, let's get educated about what else might happen. Create an environment where you can have an open-ended discussion.
Mm-hmm. Well, look,
then,
we're all, sorry, Marilyn, we're almost at time. I wanted to like just throw out one more little idea here is, there is a lot of uncertainty, you know. I mean, we've been saying that word for quite a long time. And you and I were in the room in New York when we listened to Ed Zorn with his 15 minutes of his legal update, which was fascinating at Inman. We and based on the information that he provided, and just based on reading Inman, and you know, and you can just search by these lawsuits, and you can get a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. I mean, I think we've passed a lot of maybe stage, and we've entered into there's some likely outcomes here. So I mean, my own personal advice to the people in the room right now would be to read up on these situations and to understand what's, commission out of the MLS, so forth, the downward pressure on commissions and so on. Any final thoughts on? I don't want to ask anyone to make any guesses or prognosticate here because that's dangerous. And but the tools that people need to maybe take action or make some planning movements here are evident. Would you agree?
Yeah. Kat, you want to answer that one first?
Yeah, sure. No, I think education is only beneficial for anyone, and I think it's crucial for anyone to stay up to date on this, on everything that's happening. And Inman, as you said, is very good to report on this, and define for yourself how you are going to work in your market and what is working for you, and how can you support yourself, not just tomorrow, but 1 or 2 years from now when the rules have changed of the industry, if they change.
Yeah, it's like, I would say, like, you have to look at the bottom line, right? We have a tendency, we're creatures of habits. We've had tradition. We're comfortable in our tradition. We're proud of our tradition. We like the way we do it and why we do it and how we do it. But if it comes right down to it, and this is what brokers who are in the crosshairs of these lawsuits are saying, I will give up on some tradition and or process if it means I can stay in this business and my brokerage is going to survive. And I think we have to think like that. It's like, what's the bottom line? Yes, it might be uncomfortable. Yes, it might be kind of a pain in the butt for us to learn to do something new. But that's a lot better than having an industry that implodes and it doesn't look anything like we want it to look, the people that have been in it and know and love it and have been nurturing it for 100 years.
Right.
So that's what I would say. Think, don't hold on to the tradition so tightly that you throw the baby and the bathwater out. And the next thing you know, you don't have a business at all.
Yeah. Awesome. Marilyn, thank you. Kat, thank you. This was as good as expected.
Thank you so much.
Jeff, thank you so much for having us.
Bill, Marilyn, and Kat, thank you so much for your time. I know we could have probably went on and on with that discussion for another hour, but thank you guys for closing it up and wrapping it up and your time today and dealing with our technology difficulties. So thank you guys so much. See you guys around the next event. Tribus and Solid Earth. Eric is a former realtor and broker owner with 20 plus years of experience. He fell in love with the real estate industry at an early age. He is now the CEO of the Tribus Group, a family of businesses that provide brokerage, agent, association, and MLS software tools across a wide spectrum of applications. Tribus Group is an independent company without investment from private equity or venture capital. That's a pretty good one there. Outside of work, Eric is an IFR rated pilot and an avid cruiser. Welcome, Eric Stegman, to the stage.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Jeff, thanks for the intro. In fact, I just got off a cruise about 2 days ago, and I happened to fly there. So I hit both of those this past weekend. But when I'm not doing that, I generally work about 80 hours a week in the real estate industry. And as Jeff said, we've got a few divisions. One of which is our brokerage brand, Tribus. We just launched a new enterprise brokerage brand, Nautilus, and then we have our MLS and association brand, Solid Earth. And I want to talk about a couple things today. First of all, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through some things. I promise I'm going to keep this short. We will be under 8 minutes before we all get to hear about AI here in a second, which I know everybody, there's a reason it was the last session of the day, folks, I'm sure, which is it's always the #1 attended session. So I promise I'll get through this quick. I'm going to share my screen here, and we will go through a couple things. So first of all, I think I wanted to mention this at the beginning, which is I think there's a lot to be really optimistic about here. And a couple things we see ahead of time that I want to share with all 400 plus people on this call is we see things both from a post-transaction level as well as a pre-transaction level. So it's really interesting where we sit because we see both the closed transactions from the MLS, but we also see the buyer traffic to the brokerage websites, the agent websites, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm here to tell everybody, if nothing else, if you somehow got doom and gloom from the last call about commissions and everything like that, there's something to be here and leave today really excited about, and that is transaction volume in the first month or two of the year is up significantly. In many of the metros, it's up double-digit percentages up. So that's one thing to get excited by. The second thing is buyer traffic to brokerage websites, which was actually the leading indicator when the pandemic happened. If you guys remember, we went down and transaction volume fell off a cliff, and then all of a sudden it shot back up again. Traffic to websites, traffic to broker websites was actually the leading indicator that things were going to get better. In fact, my wife and I chose to buy a home based solely upon the buyer traffic to websites. So that is up also double-digit percentages. In some metros, it's up triple-digit percentages from the first 2 months of last year to the first 2 months of this year. And then something that is a great indicator of what's going on is mortgage applications were up 9.7% last week, nearly 10% up. And obviously, when somebody applies for a mortgage, they're getting ready to buy a house. So to leave you with nothing else, after I talk about Solid Earth for just a couple minutes, hopefully I get to leave you with the fact that there's a lot to be excited about so far in the first 2 months and 7 days or so far of the year. Now, many of you on this call are likely Solid Earth users. So if you're part of Prime, if you're part of CREN, if you're part of New Mexico MLS, all those folks use Solid Earth in some way, shape, or form, or about to use Solid Earth in some way, shape, or form. And so I just want to talk about a little bit about the benefits of how Solid Earth can help you. So first of all, if you don't know this, in your MLS or your association has a portal website, a public-facing website with us, then we're getting you a lot more exposure for your listings. Your listings are all out there, they're searchable, and everybody is available to find your listing. But most importantly with it, I'm going to skip ahead for just a second, which is that you as an agent or your brokerage is the sole entity that gets the lead. Now, there's those big sites out there, the portal websites, the Wall Street companies, et cetera, and they sell the placements for that. But if you have a website through Solid Earth, if your MLS association has a website through us, every lead goes to the listing brokerage and the listing agent, so you get that extra exposure. In addition to that, for everybody that is listening on this call, everybody that is on the Solid Earth Portal website, you're going to be getting a major upgrade this year. And again, this won't cost you guys or your MLS anything extra. And that is, not only is there a huge upgrade to the website, not only is there a huge upgrade coming to the backend system, but you're also going to have access to the Solid Earth app that allows you to track all of your listings, see all of the leads. If you're a broker, a managing broker of an office, you'll be able to see all of your brokerage leads and everything that's going on. All of that will be right there in the back end of the system. Last up here is that your brokerage or agent, and as an agent, you get exposure. Additionally, beyond just your listings, you get exposure for yourself and being able to find you. And so you'll be able to find agents by designation. So if you have a GRI or the ABR, that if you're an NAR a member or Association of Realtor member, they're going to start doing that for free for everybody. So if you have that designation, you can get that to show up, and folks can search for that right from the system. So all of that is available for you in your MLS portal. Couple more things is to know is if you have one of our websites, you also get these great new upgraded pages that are in the system that you, for your brokerage or for you as an agent, you will be able to go in and edit your own pages, your own content, and really dial in your roster page, the page about you on the website. Not just if you have listings, but you will all have your own page that you can go dial in, and your listings will show up. And if you're a brokerage in an office, all of your agents in that office will show up. And again, this is all provided. There's no charge for everything that I just showed you on that page. Now, coming soon, if you are in one of our client markets, you will have access to an IDX account as well, and that will give you full access to the MLS data, either to show just your listings or all IDX listing, and it's fully combined and connected into that same system and directly connected right into the MLS platform. So that's all there. Now, if you're a brokerage, if you are a broker owner, you can also get a broker platform that's connected right into the back end of the system that allows you to do more customizations, have your own website, your own CRM accounts, your email marketing accounts. Everything like that will be connected up and connected to your MLS or your association. Last up is our dashboards, and this is a product I'm really excited about for all of you in Kren. You guys will be rolling this out hopefully very soon, which allows you to do single sign-ons into all of the tools that your MLS provides. So really easy access to get to all of those tools that everybody has, and you don't have to sign in to them all over again. Back when I was an agent, I had to remember like a ton of passwords that were out there. And I love the fact that I don't have to remember 38 passwords anymore. So that's a great part. Last minute here is if you want to check out more of what we do or what is included and what we do for your MLS, you can feel free to reach out to us at solidearth.com. There's a full support channel that's on there, and they can help you with anything, or of course talk to your MLS, and we'd be happy to answer any questions or assist you in using this system better.
Appreciate it, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day, and thanks for sponsoring the event. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Have a great day. Topics for last. Let's hear from this panel discussing some roles of artificial intelligence plays in the real estate industry. The first person on the panel is Brad Belke, the CEO of UtahRealEstate.com, Lisa Larson, who is an AI consultant, Justin Lundy, founder and CEO of Lundy. let's welcome these three to the panel.
Hi, everyone.
I think everybody's on, but Justin, I don't see Justin on yet, huh?
Jeff, you don't get to escape this panel, so you get to stay on.
Okay, I guess I volunteered.
But you just needed to do voice to find Justin, since that's Lundy. You got to do audio.
You got to and ask nicely. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, I just want to welcome everybody. I know this is the last session of the day. Hopefully we have some great takeaways for you and can show you a few things that will inspire you to take your technology to the next level. So with me today, I have Lisa Larson, and Jeff, you mentioned, but she's a veteran in this prop tech space, and she knows what types of products our agents and consumers need. And she has been an investor in AI and a strategic advisor for some of the top companies in our space. So I just want to welcome Lisa. It's a pleasure to have you on this panel. And Justin, if you don't know Justin's product, he is CEO of Lundy Inc., which utilizes really advanced AI and language models, pairing those with voice technology to create real estate search solutions for our industry. So welcome, Justin. And then last but not least, Jeff Follis, CEO of Colorado Real Estate Network, the moderator of today's event. You have done an incredible job, and hopefully we can end this nicely for you. Excuse me. All right. Well, AI is a big deal, right? And we hear about it every single day, and we think of robots and Terminator and old movies, Star Trek, Star Wars, and things that we never thought would come to fruition. And all of a sudden, in 2 years, we have seen this roller coaster of technology come our way. And for those that know me, you may know that I hate talking about too much pie in the sky, because there's always stuff we're thinking about and contemplating and wondering what's going to happen. But all of a sudden, things have hit us, and they've hit our industry, hit other industries, and artificial intelligence off of the back of ChatGPT really has opened some doors, channels, and avenues for our space, for our real estate professionals, for the MLS industry, really for all of us to start playing in this. And it's real and it's exciting. And so I'm going to just start first with Jeff. And I'm going to share my screen in a minute, because I want to give you some sites to look at that I think would be cool for the people on this that are still left with us here. And Jeff, while I show this, I just want you to kind of just talk about, as a CEO in Colorado, what are you thinking about in terms of AI? What do you think are the impacts that AI may have on our industry? What are you thinking about for your members right now? Where do you see yourself going with your MLS? And while you talk, I'm just gonna share real quick. And I don't know if it'll let me do it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Brad, I think you bring up a good point, because the minute that all this AI started coming around, immediately everything was shiny, and we were like, do we jump on the first things, or what do we do? And, my board decided to kind of take a step back and say, you know what, we don't want to jump on the first shiny product. And we kind of want to take a step back. And our strategy is over the next 18 months to come up with a plan to roll out what makes sense for the agents, consumers inside of our MLS. And what I mean by that is, probably some of the easiest ones for me to point out are, MLS matching, like, can we search by an island kitchen inside the MLS? No. Can we search by a pool inside the MLS? Maybe. But some of the AI that is now able to do all of that for us is out there. And I think that's our strategies. We're kind of taking a step back and coming up with a plan, and then we're going to go full forward.
Excellent. I think that's where probably a lot of people are right now in our industry. I hope everybody can see my slide. It really just kind of puts up some things that I hope all of you will get a chance just to Google these chat bots, basically, that will maybe help you in your daily life and in your marketing and in your spreadsheets. If you haven't used GigaSheets AI spreadsheet, it's amazing for Excel docs. Spellbook for the lawyers. Amazing redlining tools for legal docs. Some really amazing things that can help you day to day. And I'll stop sharing that. Hope everybody took a picture of that. But now I want to go over to Lisa for a second, and I want to talk about
you've been with companies that have pioneered some of the AI in our space. And while you're talking, I might show some stuff from Utah Real Estate that we put in place just so everybody can see some of the reality of what's happening. But what do you see right now as sort of the biggest success in our industry so far with respect to AI and AI adoption?
Yeah, I'd love to. And thank you for inviting me to be on this panel. Huge fans of both Brad and Justin and the work that they've done. Brad was actually one of our early adopters of AI. So having you moderate this is like such a full circle for me. When I started in AI a few years ago, the majority of the feedback we got was, well, we really like your company, but we don't know what they're trying to do. Like, what is it that they are trying to solve, right? So I went back to my engineering team and said, we need to focus more on the solutions when we wanted to approach these MLSs and these big MLS platforms and say, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? From there, we were able to come up with multiple use cases for MLSs and broker platforms. For example, we wanted to take what could be considered at the time a very archaic process, right? We wanted to remove the manual side of inputting a listing. And that, when you think about AI, is really at the nucleus. When I think about AI and the automation, what can I replace manually so I could become more proficient in my time? And so we set out to revolutionize, if you will, the listing input process. Allow an agent to build a listing simply by inputting photos. We can extract, using computer vision, millions of data sets, right? So you think about all the interior and exterior features of a property. Once we're able to grab that information, then how do we auto-populate it, right? Where do we put property descriptions, captions, auto-populate listing data fields? When you think about the time that it took for an agent before we automated the process to upload or build a listing, it could take anywhere from 45 minutes upwards to an hour, including creating a really robust listing description. We took it down to less than 10 minutes. So when you think about AI, and those of you that are on this call that have your platforms, the tools and services, and Jeff, I love that you guys took a step back to say, what's the strategy, right? Now that we see what's there, what are you trying to accomplish? How are you trying to automate the system? What success have we seen since then, Brad? To answer your question, by the end of the year, the majority of MLSs are going to be using some type of computer vision to automate the listing process, right? You had also asked me earlier what other breakthroughs that we're seeing in regards to photo imagery. And Jeff, you kind of talked on it a little bit, was this idea of being able to search by photo, right? If I can upload a photo of a blue French farmhouse and show my agent that's what I like, then can you match it with all the other French blue farmhouse kitchens that are active within the MLS, right? Then you can even look at it as far as saying, I want to understand what the property score is or what that room score is, right? Is it turnkey, ready to move in? Do I need to put a little bit of work into it to get it up to fair market value? There is another company in the vertical that's been doing great, Redfin, and a lot of you know they actually created a super impressive machine learning algorithm. And what they were able to do is predict what properties Brad would like more so than what you actually saved in their dashboard. In fact, Redfin touts that their prediction on matchmaking, which is what the product is called, you are 4 times more likely to click on that machine learning match than you would on your own saved searches. So moving forward, we've just set the architecture as far as the automation side of it. Now we get to start doing these really cool use cases and saying, how else can we do imagery to make that relationship between the realtor and the consumer even that much more solid?
Lisa, great segue. And I'm going to show everybody really quickly because the photo search, we've been doing it now for about 10 months. So we've had 10 months of of data flying through an AI photo tagger and generator. And for those that don't have Utah Real Estate MLS, this will look foreign to you, but I'm going to show you this is production and as fast as you'll see probably anywhere. So real quick, we're going to go in. Hopefully everybody can see this. I'm going to go to search. I'm going to go to photo search. I'm going to drop down a tag. We're going to just pick basketball court. Quickly goes from 7,000 down to 25. View my results, and I'm going to go pick this listing right here. And when I click on the photos, you can see right away at the top, I've got exterior photos. I have the first level photos. I have basement photos. I have level 2 photos. I can go quickly see all the bathrooms. I can look at kitchen photos. I can look at the entryways. Remember, I did a search for basketball court, and of course right here, tagged as the basketball court on the property on the outside. And so this is all AI driven. This is all done by our members. Using photo AI and then just using technology to make it as pretty as we can and easy to use for our members. So hopefully everybody was able to see that. But it's that quick, right? And it can be, we have hundreds and hundreds of tags that our members can search by, and it's transforming search, right? And Jeff, you mentioned this earlier. You said, we can't search by, I forgot what the amenity was, but we can do that now in our MLS system. And the more data that goes through it, the better your search gets, right? The more data that comes in, the better everything learns and behaves.
And can I just add on that too, for those of us on the call, a little reset. So the example that Brad used, which is amazing, uses something that's called, we tagged it, right? We were able to go in, like the photo of over my shoulder, like everything that you see in that image, we're going to tag it, and we're going to create a tag as a feature. And then Brad created the ability to be able to search. There's another type of computer vision that uses fingerprinting, which would actually match it more on the visual side of it. So it's 2 different type of AI technologies that are out there and available. And I think something that you've done, Brad, is, I think there's a misconception in our industry that says, well, if I can get a buyer to stay longer on my website and look at all these photos, then that's good. They're going to have longer engagement. And that's not the reality. We have short attention spans now. We have a couple of minutes. Please show me the kitchens if that's what I'm interested in first. Or if my son is going to, go to a D school, I want to see the basketball courts first. That's how I'm going to vet my property. Don't make me look at a bunch of different photos. Let me look at what's most important to me as a buyer. So I love that you guys are doing that, Brad.
Awesome. And Justin, we haven't forgot about you. This is just, there's so much going on in this call that I love it. And so Justin, you're not in the photo space, right? You're in the voice space, which is another huge component of AI, which is language learning, language commands, and language producing results. Tell us a little bit about what your company's doing on the AI side to make natural language search within a voice, basically an Amazon Alexa or whatever the future of voice searching will be. Tell us what you're doing and what's the next big step do you think that's coming in your side of the voice industry?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me also. This is really fun. And back to what Lisa was saying real quick, because I'm a recovering realtor, and adding a listing to the MLS, even in this day and age, was one of the worst time-consuming things, considering all the technology out there. The process is just, it's due for something like you guys have built. So that's awesome. Thank you. So what we're working on originally started a couple years ago as a problem that was close to me. Was somebody that I knew lost their vision later in life. She aged into it, and so for her, she was 80 when she lost her vision, and learning how to utilize the available assistive technology out there, like a screen reader, it was just a huge ask for her, and it wasn't going to work. But she had an Alexa device, and she was comfortable talking to it, and so I thought, what if we could take the data in this industry that I work in and love and syndicate it to really easy to access kind of voice interface. And so that was the initial concept for us. And we did a lot of work to normalize and syndicate MLS data to something that was conversational. And back then, this is probably 3 years ago, there was no ChatGPT or large language models. And so you had to deal with the Alexa AI or the Google AI or whatever was available to us, right? Which is very kind of phrase-based, and you have to speak in these predetermined commands in order to get the speaker to understand what you're saying. So there was challenges all along the way, but we worked closely with the National Federation of the Blind and built the system in a way that was really impactful to anybody that needs it. And so even as limited as voice technology is or was, it was still a huge leap for somebody that had no access to listing data, right? And then came along ChatGPT, and it's an understatement to say it captivated the world, because it's changed everything, even what's possible, right? And the large language model, for those that don't know, that's what is so amazing about ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is just a web browser with a chat bot on it, right? It's the underlying AI, the large language model, that's been trained on vast amounts of data that not only understands, but is able to produce this human-like interaction, right? This in ChatGPT, it's text, but you tell it whatever you want. You don't have to speak in robot. You don't have to do anything. You just say you type what you're thinking. And so early on, as soon as we had access to the API for OpenAI, we were like, we need to start talking to this thing, right? And so, about this time last year, we had our very, very small steps, right? Because there's a lot of concerns about privacy and what are we allowed to do with this thing? And so we, very slowly and safely started giving it a little more responsibility. But as everybody's picked up and started building their own large language models, and you have a lot more secure foundations like Azure hosting their own, we've felt more comfortable giving it more and more responsibility, to now where our next version of the accessibility product we offer is so advanced that you don't even have to speak to it in phrases. You don't even have to tell it how many bedrooms or bathrooms you want. You just give it your situation, right? And what's really impactful about this is, as an agent, buyers that I worked with, they always had some scenario, right? There was some reason why they needed a new home. It was, we've got another kid on the way and we need more space, or I want to downsize and get closer to my kids, or whatever it is. It was some scenario. It wasn't this two-dimensional drop-down menu that we've all been conditioned to kind of reduce our scenario to with these web portals. And so what our system allows consumers to do is just give us the scenario. You just talk. And the large language model is so advanced and so smart that it takes your scenario and produces this OData filter that just searches through every single field or image tag available and finds you the homes that fit your situation. And so the leap that's coming is kind of already here, but it's really trying to fully utilize this billions of dollars worth of AI that we've just been given the keys to, right? Because we couldn't have built this thing. Like, it's insane. And so it's for finding homes, which is our search, our accessibility solution that we offer MLSs. It's really creating something that's not just intuitive and personalized, but it's really fun to use. And that's, what we're excited to have built and are pushing actually in April to the public. As far as, we'll just leave it at that to answer that question.
Yeah, I think, Justin, that's fantastic. I know there's lots of people on this call, and if you haven't, I know we hear about AI all the time. If you haven't created a ChatGPT account, I really challenge everybody to take 5 minutes after this session and just create your account. Go in there. I will tell you, just from a parent standpoint, my son is doing some complex algebra equations, right? And I'm really good at math. and I know how to do math a certain way when I learned it in the 80s, and he's doing it in the 2020s, which is very different. But what's fascinating is it doesn't just spit out the answer, right? You can actually type the whole word problem or a textual problem or whatever you want. You can type it all in, and it will analyze it and tell you how to solve it. And not only that, you can then go in and say, you know what? Can you solve it the way we used to solve it in the 1980s? And it will show you how I used to solve the problem. And then I can kind of teach my child, hey, it's not just the answer that you're getting right. It's how to do it. And there's multiple ways of doing it, which they know. But it also shows them that I'm not stupid and I can solve the problem too, maybe just in a slightly different way. But the context of OpenAI is untapped. I mean, it's tapped. People are tapping into it, but it's untapped. And I look at it as, you know, we have the radio, we have the TV, we have the personal computer, we had the mobile phone, and now we have OpenAI. And it is that big. It is transforming what we do daily. And so, like I said, I want everybody to go in and play with it. If you haven't used DALL-E, the image generator, you have to do it. I just did it for my team, for our baseball team that I coach, and I generated a new image of our mascot for our team, right? And boom, I can then use that. I can play with it. I can manipulate it. I can put it on a shirt or a hat. All of that I would not have been able to do before. I would have had to have great Adobe Photoshop skills and been an excellent graphic artist, which I'm not. And so it has opened up opportunities for people who are not skilled in something to use their mind and their creativity to build something that they would not have been able to build without a lot of help before. Jeff, what worries you about sort of artificial intelligence in I'm not going to say in the world, because we're all worried about robots and people, you know, the Terminator concept, but what worries you about it in our space, in the real estate space?
I was just going to ask you the same question, Brad. But, you know, I think the worries that I hear, I think the ones that worry me is, you know, things like copyright, ownership, who owns what was generated, all those types of legal things. I think what I hear is agents and brokers have concerns about all of that, you know, like, okay, so I plugged into ChatGPT and I wrote up this big description of this house. Does this belong to me? Or did I tell it what to write? Or who's this belong to? Or who owns the copyright of it? So I think, you know, from in the trenches, that's what I'm hearing. And I think people are, you know, they're kind of scared to take that step sometimes to changing. And I think this is a big step for a lot of people. So I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's what I hear mostly in the trenches, you know.
Lisa, when you're inventing technology and you're pushing forward, you can't do what Jeff said, and what I have to do sometimes is measure that legal risk and legal liability. You have to push forward with invention. You have to push forward with innovation. What worries you about where you see some of these companies going? Are they going to replace the real estate agent? Are they replace the broker? What are your fears as this stuff evolves?
Sure. First of all, and I think Justin kind of alluded to this earlier, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, purchasing decision that a consumer will ever make in their lifetime is the purchase of a property. So convince me that somebody doesn't need to help them through that process, because I'm always going to lean towards the agent is always relevant. The idea of how we leverage AI and what are the pros and cons of it. Brad, you know, currently I'm enrolled at MIT in the AI program, and it's something we talk about a lot. It's definitely top of mind. And I think I read somebody had written this in the chat about even information being uploaded incorrectly, right? When you think about AI, at the beginning stages of it, AI was programmed by a human, right? And then the second phase that comes in is the machine learning. And it's the machine is trying to learn, and they're looking for patterns. And then based on the input that was put in and their learnings and the feedback loop, they're going to come to an output conclusion of that. Going back to what the professional had said in the chat earlier today about the incorrect information, hallucinations are always one of my biggest concerns, whether it's the hallucination of putting the information in and something coming out that's a little incorrect, maybe you took a picture of me and I have 3 arms now, and I should have had 2 arms as a hallucination. AI has a hard time, even with driving robotics, right? Self-driving automated cars. If a bus drives by that has a picture of an advertisement of Justy for Lundy on it, the AI visual does not know that that's not a real human being, right? So there are valid concerns with it. I strongly believe that AI works at its best when it works alongside a human being. And as long as we keep those guardrails in place, AI is going to replace 80% of our manual work, absolutely. But that other 20% is going to be what's really important, that the human continues to be engaged with whatever solution you're using for AI.
Yeah, I totally agree. The creativity part is the part that the human element brings. Justin, what if you could envision like your product or the voice-based AI at its best? What do you see it doing? Like, where do you see the agent using it in daily life? If it was your perfect vision and you could bring your product exactly where you wanted it to go, what do you see the daily life of an agent is using the voice-based AI?
Oh man, it'd be really cool. Picture Jarvis, right? Because and it's not even like a pie in the sky like you started with. The integration of large language models with voice, like what that does to these speakers is it creates this superhuman assistant, right? And so if you imagine all of the different touch points, the front end, if you will, an agent has with its MLS system, with its consumers, with the search it saved, with the market stats, with adding new listings, like all of that could become more efficient with a voice interface. Right. So imagine you just sign your listing presentation or your listing agreement while you're there giving the presentation with your homeowner, and you throw in your headphones and you say, hey, just got a new listing. Let's go ahead and start putting it in the MLS. And while you walk around, you just say what you see, and that starts to funnel into the right slots. You can, while you're in there, say, schedule my photos, so that, Recipe can come in and upload the rest of whatever's missing from your walkthrough. You jump in your car and your homeowner texts you like, hey, you know what? We'll be out of town next weekend. Why don't you go ahead and do an open house? And through that same, AI assistant, you're like, hey, let's go ahead and schedule an open house for 123 Main Street. Let's do Saturday from 12 to 2. And that just all gets done because the large language model is able to understand complex human communication. It's digital, so it's tied to your entire digital ecosystem, right? Between your MLS system, your calendar, your Slack channel, like everything. And it becomes, I don't want to say effortless, but all of the tasks and tools in the daily life of an agent that involve us sitting down and typing something, all of that can go away. Yeah. Like every click in your MLS system, to pull up market stats from last quarter in a certain zip code, that's like 10 clicks in your system, right? Sure. When you can just say it, and it just produces. Like, so that's what's actually possible now. And it's what we're building.
I mean, I think being able to see where this is going, the potential is limitless. I talked to Lisa about this and to Justin the other day. It's just something I want to make everybody on the session here in the virtual summit aware of, is that the laws are going to trail the innovation, which they always do. But there is one law that was put in place by the Federal Communications Commission. It was voted on in December of 2023. It doesn't go into effect, I believe, until July of this year. But it basically isn't dealing with AI, but it's dealing with in our context, an agent's ability to contact a lead, right? Basically, how they can go and cold call or not cold call or get information from a website or buy a list and then contact someone. And this is going to affect all of our lives. And Jeff, I'm going to have you comment on it in a second. But basically what it is that it's going to apply to the do not call list is going to apply to texting now. Callers have to have a consumer's prior express written consent before they can contact them. And that's defined pretty loosely as must be logically and topically related to where that information came from. So just a quick example, if you're shopping for clothes on Gap's website, you can't then basically like have that information fed so that a real estate agent can then call you because you've entered in your information. There can't be disparate platforms in different industries that then share information back and forth. It's going to hurt the cold calling of our industry, which is being done. Now, flipping that to AI, I know brokers right now are playing with AI to robocall, quote unquote, robocall cold leads, right? Using a voice generated AI system to call and follow up with hundreds, possibly thousands of people, which would take an agent themselves, it would take them weeks to call that, and they can do it with an AI bot super fast. So this is now a reality of our world, that the technology has moved forward. The FCC is still dealing with the do not call list type mentality, and we're going to have an impasse. It's going to hurt companies in our industry who deal with leads. It's going to hurt the broker, a small brokerage on the street. These are things that we're going to have to communicate and educate our members on. Our associations will need to do it as well. But from the MLS side, we have an opportunity to really get in front of people, I think, at a bigger audience. Jeff, what's your opinion of all of this? I know you're going to get questions from your agents and brokers who want to use AI, but they're probably going to violate this FCC rule.
I think I think you hit it on the head there, Brad. We have to communicate this new stuff to the members and subscribers. And I actually just listened to was it Rob and Greg Robertson and Rob Hahn had a great one on about the new regulation from the FTC. And I don't think it prevents like a person manually calling, but it prevents the robo calling, was my understanding. And I think that's on the shoulders of the MLS. We need to communicate that to our members and make them be in the know of what's right and wrong out there with the ever-changing landscape of AI and using robo calls for like cold calling stuff.
And you also have laws in every state that determine what a licensee can do and how they can represent themselves. Is an AI acting on behalf of the agent? Is it unlicensed activity? These are just questions that are going to come out from the technology that we're all going to have an answer on at some point. Lisa, I know you've looked into this law a lot, and there's a lot of tech companies who make a lot of money off of leads, right? It is a huge business in our space. What do you think the impact's going to be with this FCC regulation?
I mean, dare I say leads are dead, right? Leads are dead. It's the pre-mover intelligence that's going to replace that, and the machine learning, right? For MLSs, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to improve and augment on data that you already have, right? And MLS is a database. And with not just the FCC ruling, but with everything else that's happening to the DOJ and putting MLSs and the value that they bring in question, this is a wonderful opportunity, I think, for MLSs to really pivot and become the data center that they really are in providing those services. So when I think about the lead side being taken away, and which obviously is going to impact more of the big portal disruptors, right? The guys that like sell the 8-headed monster, as they used to call it. And, Justin wants to have information about this property, and I'm going to resell Justin 8 times over to multiple agents. And I think that's really what that law was trying to be put in place for. Protect Justin so he doesn't feel like once I do raise my hand that I'm not going to be bombarded with 20 million spam calls. I think that it's just a great opportunity for us to go back to our members, to go back to the members and really rebuild those products and tools that are already in there. Your CRMs, right? If you have a very robust CRM product that has pre-mover intelligence, property intelligence, and buyer behavior activity. So Justin might be in my CRM. And if I get the intelligence back saying that Justin is starting to show signals that he wants to move, he was interacting with a widget, he started looking at properties on various portals, or maybe he's going to run an AVM on his house, or he's starting to look at commute times from a property that he doesn't own into a different location. That's going to be okay. That's going to be a great opportunity for our real estate professionals to leverage AI with the help of the MLS, because MLSs are sitting on $1 billion data set right now. You are a massive data company. And if you allow AI to work and machine learning to work to feed you back the information from the data you're already sitting on, you're going to help your agents get past this lead and possibly have a better return on it, instead of spending money on leads that I know 10 other agents have called and the person's going to hang up on me. I can have very relevant information to Justin and saying, I know that you're going to move in like 3 months based on the intelligence that we have. So I'm not afraid of this ruling. I'm actually kind of sick of the lead game, actually. And I'm looking for a way that we can elevate our agents to make them look smarter and more in tune with what's happening within their CRM, their consumers that they've interacted with, and what the behaviors are throughout the verticals.
So I'm going to end it with this. I'm going to start with you, Justin. Let's all take 1 minute and we'll go round robin here. What AI technology do you think, not one that you sell, or that what do you think in the next 18 months do you see will be implemented at a heightened pace at MLSs or in the real estate space around the country?
Well, I think Lisa touched on some of it. It's there's like this predictive analytics that with the right engineer, you guys can utilize the AI that already exists to go through your data, like she was saying. There is the buyer behavior and the seller behavior stuff, but also listing optimization, right? Understanding the pairing between those buyer analytics or their behavior analytics, and knowing what to say and how to list a certain property, right, to reduce its time on market and get it the most exposure in front of the right people, right? It goes back to like those leads that everybody's called, and such a low percentage of them that actually convert. It's such a waste of time. So if you're able to utilize data and this predictive analytics to do the right things, you're going to save a lot of time. I think there's some MLSs that are already using large language models for their consumer or their member support and and compliance, right? Just feeding in all of your rules into these things, so that instead of an agent having to go to their broker, their compliance officer, to say, hey, this other agent just did this thing, is this wrong? It can go straight to something that knows the answer right then and there and responds, right? So I think there's something there too.
Yep. Jeff, what do you think? What do you think the one thing will be?
Definitely listing input and consumer search.
Okay. Lisa, what about you?
It's all so exciting. How do you choose one? I really like the idea. Back in the day, I used to say, if only the homeowner could tell the story about their property to the buyer, right? And so I think leveraging a lot of the like ChatGPT, you had talked about a little bit earlier, Brad, like it's one thing that you have a seller's description of a property, but what if the buyer's agent could also create a description that speaks specifically to Brad, because he has a son that's going to play baseball and there's a fast pitch machine in the backyard, right? Yep. More so utilizing that. I don't think enough of us have really understood, like even with the ChatGPT, I'm in school right now. I have a full-time job. I run a house. I have 20 million balls in the air. I had to do my taxes. And so I know this is going to sound scary to a lot of people, but I started uploading my statements into ChatGPT and I said, okay, I want you to create an Excel spreadsheet in these 4 columns, and I only want you to extract this data. And this is for one of my rental properties. And this is what I want to do. That was doing the manual work for me as I was doing my homework. Like it was so amazing. Yeah. So when I look at even just the power of ChatGPT, we've just barely scratched the surface on all of the manual sides of the admin, the AI side that it can help our agents with. And I'm just super excited to see where our MLS is and our big data providers like ICE and CoreLogic and Remine and all these great companies and Stratus and AMP are building out to help our agents become more modernized and make them more efficient.
Yep. And I will say, I'll just leave it with, I think it's going to be in the support realm. I think started with photos. I think voice, that'll continue. I think having all of your, if you have a wiki of all of your tech tips or all of your articles and news releases, uploading all of those into a database that can be read can be very powerful to allow for almost 24/7 support for any MLS. And I think that's my goal for this year, is to have video, chat, AI on all the off hours where I don't have staff available, and to make my members have as close to a human being as they can to ask questions if it's 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or whatever that may be. So with that, I just want to say thank you to everybody on this panel. That was fantastic to hear all the expertise from Lisa and Justin, and Jeff and I just kind of sit back and watch that. So, and thank you, Jeff, for having us on today's summit.
Thank you all for being a part of the summit today. Appreciate it, you guys.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Jeff.